Picture the end of the world, not in flames or chaos, but in perfect, suffocating silence. A continent twice the size of Australia lies beneath a blanket of ice so thick it could bury Manhattan's tallest skyscrapers and still have miles to spare. The wind howls across this wasteland at speeds that could strip flesh from bone, carrying with it the whispers of secrets frozen in time. Antarctica. The name itself conjures images of desolation, of a place so hostile that it seems designed to keep humanity at bay. Here, temperatures plummet to -100 degrees Fahrenheit. Here, storms rage for months without pause. Here, the sun disappears for half the year, leaving behind a darkness so complete it seems to swallow sound itself. But what if this frozen fortress is not the empty wasteland we believe it to be? What if beneath its pristine surface lies something far more extraordinary than mere ice and rock? Stand at the edge of the Ross Ice Shelf and feel the weight of the impossible. Beneath your feet, ice extends downward for nearly 3 miles in some places. The pressure at the bottom is crushing, unimaginable. Yet scientists tell us that this ice is relatively young in geological terms, a mere blink of an eye in Earth's vast timeline. Most of it formed within the last few million years, sealing away whatever came before like a time capsule of unthinkable proportions. The statistics alone stagger the mind. Antarctica contains roughly 70% of the world's fresh water, locked away in crystalline suspension. If all this ice were to melt, global sea levels would rise by nearly 200 feet, drowning coastal cities and reshaping the very geography of our planet. But the ice remains, a guardian standing watch over mysteries that may predate human civilization itself. Modern satellite imagery reveals tantalizing glimpses of what lies beneath. Advanced ground-penetrating radar has mapped mountain ranges that dwarf the Alps, river systems that once carved through tropical landscapes, and vast basins that held lakes larger than the Great Lakes of North America. These are the bones of a different world that existed when Antarctica was not the frozen desert we know today, but a lush, temperate land that might have cradled life in forms we can barely imagine. The ice preserves everything with perfect fidelity. In Antarctica's frozen embrace, scientists have discovered insects that died millions of years ago, their cellular structure intact. They have found forests turned to stone, their leaves still bearing the delicate patterns of photosynthesis that ceased when the world was young. If organic matter can survive in such pristine condition, what else might be waiting in that crystalline tomb? As we stand on the threshold of this mystery, we must ask ourselves, what transforms a continent from garden to glacier? What force of nature, or perhaps something else entirely, could have buried an entire world beneath miles of ice? The answers may challenge everything we believe we know about the history of our planet and the creatures who have called it home. The indigenous peoples of the far south have always known that the land beyond the great waters holds secrets. Their stories speak of times when the ice was not ice, when strange lights danced in skies that never knew winter's grip. These are not mere fairy tales, but perhaps distant echoes of memories passed down through countless generations, memories of a world before the freeze. Tonight, as Antarctic winds howl across the emptiest continent on Earth, something stirs in the darkness beneath the ice. Not wind or shifting snow, but the weight of questions that demand answers. What if the cradle of human civilization lies not in the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia or along the banks of the Nile, but buried beneath the most inhospitable place on our planet? What if Antarctica is not humanity's final frontier, but our forgotten beginning? To understand what Antarctica might be hiding, we must first journey backward through the corridors of deep time, to an epoch when this frozen continent bore no resemblance to the wasteland we know today. Picture instead a world where palm trees swayed in gentle breezes and rivers meandered through, landscapes painted in every shade of green imaginable. 50 million years ago, our planet was a vastly different place. The continents themselves occupied different positions, locked in the slow dance of plate tectonics that continues to reshape our world grain by grain, inch by inch, across millions of years. Antarctica had not yet settled into its current position at the bottom of the world. Instead, it drifted through latitudes where warmth was not a stranger, where seasons meant the difference between tropical abundance and merely temperate plenty. The scientific community has reached remarkable consensus on this transformation. Through painstaking analysis of ice cores, rock samples, and fossilized remains, researchers have reconstructed a timeline that reads like the biography of a dying world. The story begins with abundance and ends in the perfect preservation of ice and natural mausoleum that may have sealed away more than just ancient forests and forgotten creatures. The Great Change began approximately 34 million years ago, during what geologists call the Eocene-Oligocene transition. Like a vast clockwork mechanism winding down, the Earth's climate began to cool. The positions of the continents shifted with geological patience, and Antarctica found itself drifting toward the South Pole, a journey that would seal its fate and perhaps bury secrets that predate recorded human history. As Antarctica settled into its polar position, the circumpolar current formed around it like a liquid fence, isolating the continent from the warming influence of tropical waters. Ocean currents that had once carried heat from equatorial regions could no longer reach Antarctica's shores. The continent became an island unto itself, cut off from the thermal lifelines that had sustained its verdant past. The ice began as a whisper seasonal snowfall that failed to melt completely during the brief summers. Year after year, century after century, the snow accumulated. Under its own weight, it compressed into ice, and that ice began to flow like a frozen river, carving valleys and shaping mountains with inexorable patience. What had once been a landscape of plenty became a frozen ocean of white, growing deeper with each passing millennium. But here, in the space between what science tells us and what our imaginations whisper, lies a troubling question. The transition from green world to ice age, while gradual in geological terms, may have been catastrophically swift by human standards. If intelligent life had evolved on this temperate continent, if civilizations had risen among those ancient forests, it would have faced a crisis beyond anything in recorded human experience. Contemporary climate models suggest that once the cooling began in earnest, entire ecosystems would have collapsed within centuries rather than millennia. Rivers would have frozen solid. Forests would have died in waves, their fallen trunks becoming the fossil record we study today. Any creatures dependent on those ecosystems would have faced a simple choice: adapt, migrate, or perish. The geological evidence speaks of this transformation with scientific precision, but it cannot tell us what might have walked among those doomed forests in their final centuries. It cannot reveal whether intelligent eyes watched the inexorable advance of winter, or whether clever hands might have worked to preserve knowledge, artifacts, or even entire communities beneath the accumulating snow. As the ice sheets grew thicker, they began to exert their own influence on the climate, reflecting sunlight back into space and accelerating the cooling process. What meteorologists call a feedback loop transformed Antarctica into a self-sustaining engine of ice production. The more the continent froze, the more it encouraged further freezing, until the very landscape became locked in a crystalline prison that has endured for millions of years. Meanwhile, the weight of accumulating ice billions upon billions of tons pressing downward began to reshape the continent itself. The land beneath the ice sheet compressed and sank, creating basins that would later become subglacial lakes. Mountain ranges were ground smooth or buried entirely. Valley systems that had channeled rivers for millions of years were carved deeper or filled in completely, erasing the geographical signatures of the world that came before. Yet even as this icy transformation sealed away the past, it also preserved it with perfect fidelity. Unlike other regions of the world, where erosion and geological activity have scrambled the historical record beyond recognition, Antarctica's ice has created a time capsule of unprecedented scale and precision. As the final forests succumbed to the advancing cold and the last rivers froze solid, Antarctica entered its current phase of existence, a phase that has persisted, unchanged in its essential character, for millions of years. But beneath that ice, pressed down by unimaginable weight and preserved in perfect crystalline suspension, lies everything that came before: landscapes, creatures, and perhaps evidence of intelligence that witnessed the end of one world and the birth of another. Deep within the Antarctic ice, entombed in crystalline perfection, lies evidence of a world so alien to our modern understanding that its discovery reads like science fiction. Yet the proof exists in the form of fossils, so well preserved that scientists can still examine their cellular structure, still trace the delicate veins in leaves they photosynthesized under alien skies millions of years ago. In the transantarctic mountains, where ancient peaks pierce through the ice sheet like the spines of buried giants, researchers have uncovered forests turned to stone. These are not the sparse, stunted woodlands one might expect from a continent transitioning toward polar conditions, but evidence of lush, tropical ecosystems that flourished in conditions we can barely imagine. Palm fronds lie preserved in rock, their fan-like structures speaking of humid warmth and gentle rains. Fern forests stretch through fossilized valleys, their delicate fronds capturing sunlight that streamed through canopies long since turned to dust. The Permian period, roughly 250 million years ago, painted Antarctica in shades of green that would seem impossible to modern eyes. Glossopteris forest's ancient seed ferns with tongue-shaped leaves dominated vast stretches of the continent. These weren't merely surviving in Antarctica's ancient climate. They were thriving, creating ecosystems so robust that their fossil record suggests biodiversity rivaling modern tropical rainforests. But perhaps more intriguing than the plant life are the creatures that moved through these ancient woodlands. Dinosaur fossils discovered in Antarctica tell of massive herbivores browsing through fern undergrowth, their footprints preserved in what were once muddy riverbanks. Cryolophosaurus, a crested predator that stood nearly 20 feet long, prowled through forests where icebergs now drift in frozen seas. These were not creatures adapted to harsh conditions, but animals that required abundant vegetation, reliable water sources, and temperatures that allowed for active, warm-blooded lifestyles. The fossil record speaks of an Antarctica where rivers ran year-round, where seasonal variations meant the difference between abundant rainfall and moderate drought rather than between life and death. Coal seams discovered throughout the continent, coal formed from ancient plant matter, suggest not just forests, but forests so prolific that their accumulated biomass created geological features still visible today beneath the ice. Yet as we peer deeper into this lost world, stranger discoveries emerge from the frozen record. In the Beacon Sandstone formations, scientists have found evidence of ecosystems that seem to defy easy classification. Plant species with no modern analogs grew in patterns that suggest not just natural abundance, but perhaps purposeful cultivation. Root systems follow geometric patterns that natural selection alone might not readily explain. Clearings in ancient forests show signs of organization that could represent the work of intelligence, though mainstream science attributes these features to natural geological processes. The preservation quality in Antarctica's ice goes beyond anything found elsewhere on Earth. While other fossil sites offer glimpses of ancient life, Antarctica provides a record so complete that scientists can examine pollen grains under electron microscopes and still see the intricate structures that allowed these ancient plants to reproduce. They can study the cellular walls of wood that grew when the supercontinent Pangaea was still assembling, examining growth rings that recorded seasonal changes in a world where seasons meant abundance versus plenty rather than survival versus death. Among the most puzzling discoveries are the trace fossils' evidence of creature behavior rather than the creatures themselves. Burrows and tunnel systems found in ancient sediments suggest complex underground ecosystems. Some of these structures show signs of engineering that goes beyond simple animal instinct: ventilation shafts, drainage systems, and organized chambers that speak of intelligence applied to environmental challenges. The plant life itself tells of conditions that challenge our understanding of prehistoric climate. Tropical species that require consistent warmth and humidity grew alongside temperate varieties that suggest seasonal variations. This mixture of flora indicates a climate more stable and hospitable than anything found on Earth today, a climate that might have supported not just plant and animal life, but potentially the development of intelligence. As the ice sheets formed and Antarctica's green world died, this entire ecosystem became trapped in time. Unlike other regions where fossilization is selective and incomplete, Antarctica's rapid freezing created a snapshot of entire food webs, complete ecosystems preserved down to the microscopic level. Pollen grains, insect wings, fragments of wood, and perhaps other organic materials that have yet to be discovered lie beneath miles of ice, waiting for technology advanced enough to retrieve them without destruction. The implications ripple outward like waves from a stone dropped in still water. If Antarctica once hosted such rich, complex ecosystems for millions of years, what evolutionary developments might have occurred in isolation on this massive continent? What forms of life might have emerged from the interplay of abundant resources, stable climate, and the evolutionary pressure that creates intelligence? Moreover, the rapid transition from green abundance to frozen wasteland raises haunting questions about preservation. If this catastrophic climate change occurred over centuries rather than millions of years, entire communities of whatever intelligent life might have evolved could have been flash frozen along with everything else. Not just fossilized remains, but perfectly preserved specimens, complete with whatever artifacts, structures, or records they might have created. As we contemplate this lost green Antarctica, we must also consider the possibility that intelligence, whatever form it might have taken, could have recognized the approaching crisis and taken measures to preserve itself. In a world where freezing was not just possible but inevitable, the ice itself might have become not a destroyer, but a protector, offering perfect preservation to whatever chose to embrace it rather than flee from it. In the dusty archives of Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, a map rests that has puzzled scholars for over 500 years. Created in 1513 by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, this chart appears to show the impossible. The coastline of Antarctica, mapped with remarkable accuracy decades before the continent was officially discovered and depicted, without the ice that has covered it for millions of years. The map itself is a masterpiece of medieval cartography, drawn on gazelle hide in the distinctive style of the Ottoman Empire. Piri Reis was no amateur navigator, but a seasoned admiral whose charts guided Ottoman fleets across the Mediterranean and beyond. His reputation for accuracy was legendary among the seafaring communities of the 16th century, making the anomalies on this particular map all the more intriguing. According to Piri Reis's own notes inscribed on the map, he compiled his chart from 20 earlier maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. He claimed to have consulted charts captured from Spanish vessels, maps acquired from Portuguese navigators, and most remarkably, a map drawn by Christopher Columbus himself. But perhaps most mysterious of all, he referenced ancient charts whose origins he could not definitively trace, maps that seemed to preserve geographical knowledge from sources lost to historical record. When modern cartographers first examined the Piri Reis map with the tools of contemporary geography, they discovered correspondences that should have been impossible. The depicted coastline of what appears to be Antarctica matches remarkably well with modern seismic surveys that have mapped the continent as true shoreline beneath its ice sheet. Mountain ranges are positioned with startling accuracy. Bays and inlets correspond to geographical features that were unconfirmed until advanced. radar technology could peer through miles of accumulated ice. The precision extends to details that suggest intimate familiarity with the mapped territory. Rivers are shown flowing from interior mountains toward the coast, following paths that modern surveys confirm would be the natural drainage patterns if the ice were removed. Islands are positioned off the coast in locations that correspond exactly to modern bathymetric charts, showing underwater peaks that would emerge as islands if sea levels dropped or ice accumulated elsewhere. Perhaps most puzzling of all, the map shows Antarctica connected to South America by a land bridge in the Drake Passage region, a geographical feature that geologists believe existed millions of years ago, long before human beings appeared on Earth. This level of detail suggests either remarkable coincidence or access to information sources that preserve knowledge across geological timescales. Skeptics argue that the apparent Antarctic coastline is merely a misrepresentation of South America's southern regions, distorted by the limited geographical knowledge available to 16th century cartographers. They point to the common practice among medieval mapmakers of filling unknown regions with speculative geography based on classical texts and sailors' tales. The apparent accuracy, they suggest, is the result of selective interpretation by researchers eager to find mystery where none exists. Yet the counter-arguments persist with troubling consistency. Charles Hapgood, a professor at Keene State College, spent years analyzing the Piri Reis map and other ancient charts, developing what he called his theory of ancient sea kings navigators whose geographical knowledge surpassed what conventional history suggests should have been possible. His mathematical analysis of the map as projections revealed a sophisticated understanding of spherical trigonometry that should not have existed in 1513. The map's construction itself raises questions that extend beyond simple accuracy. The projection method used by Piri Reis requires complex mathematical calculations that were unofficially developed until centuries later. The chart demonstrates knowledge of longitude determination that European navigators wouldn't master until the invention of precise chronometers in the 18th century. These technical achievements suggest either remarkable individual genius or access to sources of knowledge that preserved advanced navigational techniques from earlier civilizations. Other ancient maps display similar anomalies. The Orontius Phineas map of 1532 shows Antarctica with interior detail, including mountain ranges and rivers features that would not be confirmed until the International Geophysical Year surveys of the 1950s. The Philippe Beauchamp map of 1754 shows Antarctica divided into two major landmasses by a waterway that was undiscovered until the 1960s, when advanced radar revealed a channel of bedrock below sea level running completely across the continent beneath the ice. These cartographic puzzles converge on a troubling possibility that accurate geographical knowledge of Antarctica existed long before the continent's official discovery in 1820. If such knowledge survived in ancient charts and oral traditions, it suggests contact with Antarctica during a period when the continent was either ice-free or accessible despite its ice coverage. Such contact would require not only advanced navigation technology, but also the motivation and resources to mount expeditions to the bottom of the world. The preservation of this knowledge across centuries or millennia implies institutional continuity among ancient civilizations, libraries, schools, or traditions capable of maintaining precise geographical information across generations. Such institutions would necessarily have understood the value of the information they were preserving, suggesting a level of geographical consciousness that exceeds what conventional history attributes to ancient cultures. As we examine the Piri Reis map in the context of Antarctica's frozen mysteries, we must consider the possibility that it represents more than an interesting historical curiosity. If the map indeed shows Antarctica as it existed before its ice age, then its very existence suggests that intelligent observers witnessed and recorded the continent during its transition from green world to frozen wasteland. The map becomes not just a geographical document, but potential evidence that someone was watching as Antarctica died and cared enough to preserve the memory of what was lost beneath the ice. The admiral's annotations on his map include a tantalizing reference to lands discovered by navigators of old, suggesting that even in 1513, the sources he consulted were considered ancient. This raises the haunting possibility that the geographical knowledge preserved in his chart represents the final echo of direct contact with Antarctica, contact made not by European explorers of the Age of Discovery, but by navigators whose names have been lost to history, whose achievements have been buried beneath centuries of ice and time. In the sterile laboratories of glaciologists around the world, computer screens flicker with images that should not exist. Radar signals penetrate miles of Antarctic ice and return with echoes that paint pictures of impossible architecture hidden beneath the frozen surface. Mountain ranges that dwarf the Himalayas rise from bedrock foundations, their peaks forever entombed in crystalline darkness. But among these natural formations, the instruments detect anomalies that challenge the very boundaries between geology and archaeology. The technology that reveals these secrets is itself a marvel of human ingenuity. Ground-penetrating radar sends electromagnetic pulses through the ice sheet, measuring the time it takes for signals to bounce back from buried surfaces. Different materials reflect these signals in characteristic ways, allowing scientists to distinguish between rock and ice, between solid formations and hollow spaces, between the chaotic signatures of natural geology and the geometric patterns that speak of organization, purpose, intent. Project BEDMAP, an international collaboration to map Antarctica's hidden landscape, has revealed a continent beneath the continental world of valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, lakes larger than Lake Superior, and mountain systems that stretch for hundreds of miles through territories no human eye has ever seen. Yet among these natural wonders, the radar returns occasionally detect formations that seem to follow artificial geometries, structures whose angles and proportions suggest something other than the random processes of geological formation. In the Ellsworth Mountains, buried under nearly 2 miles of ice, radar surveys have identified what appears to be a massive stepped structure rising from the valley floor. The formation displays a geometric precision that has sparked fierce debate among researchers. Mainstream geologists argue that natural processes, wind erosion, water flow, tectonic activity can create surprisingly regular patterns in rock formations. But the structure, dimensions, and proportions bear an unsettling resemblance to pyramid complexes found in other parts of the world, scaled up to dimensions that dwarf any known human construction. The Wilkes Land anomaly presents an even more perplexing mystery. Gravity measurements indicate a massive dense object buried beneath the ice, roughly circular in shape and nearly 200 miles in diameter. The gravitational signature suggests a concentration of heavy metals far exceeding anything that natural geological processes typically produce. Some scientists theorize that it represents the remains of a massive asteroid impact, but the object's perfectly circular outline and uniform density distribution challenge this explanation. More intriguing still are the linear features that radar surveys have detected running for hundreds of miles beneath the ice in perfectly straight lines. These formations, dubbed ice highways by researchers, show none of the meandering characteristics typical of natural geological processes. They run with engineering precision across varied terrain, maintaining consistent width and depth even as they traverse mountains, valleys, and plains. While officially classified as unusual glacier flow patterns, their geometric perfection raises questions about whether natural processes alone can account for their formation. Lake Vostok, the largest of Antarctica's subglacial lakes, presents mysteries that extend beyond its mere existence. This body of water, larger than Lake Ontario and sealed beneath nearly 3 miles of ice for potentially millions of years, shows magnetic anomalies that suggest the presence of metallic objects on its floor. Preliminary sonar mapping has detected what appear to be artificial structures rising from the lake, bed structures with geometric regularities that seem inconsistent with natural sedimentation patterns. The lake's isolation has preserved what may be a complete prehistoric ecosystem, but some researchers theorize that it may have preserved something else as well. If intelligent life existed on Antarctica before its Ice Age lake, Vostok and similar subglacial lakes might serve as natural time capsules preserving not just ancient microorganisms, but potentially artifacts or even structures from civilizations that recognized the approaching freeze and took refuge beneath the ice. Advanced ice-penetrating radar has also detected vast tunnel systems running through the bedrock beneath Antarctica's ice sheet. These passages, some large enough to accommodate subway trains, extend for hundreds of miles in networks that seem to connect various geographical features across the continent. While geologists explain these as natural watercourses carved by subglacial rivers, the tunnel systems display an organizational pattern that suggests purpose rather than random geological formation. Perhaps most mysteriously, certain areas of Antarctica generate electromagnetic anomalies that interfere with sensitive equipment and cause compass readings to fluctuate wildly. These magnetic disturbances seem concentrated around the locations where radar surveys had detected the most geometric formations, suggesting a connection between the buried structures and unusual electromagnetic activity. Some researchers theorize that metallic objects of unusual composition may be responsible for these magnetic signatures. The ice itself provides clues to what lies beneath. Core samples extracted from various depths contain microscopic particles of metals and minerals that shouldn't exist in Antarctic ice. These materials appear to have been airborne when the ice formed, suggesting that they originated from sources on or near the surface during the period when Antarctica was transitioning from habitable continent to frozen wasteland. Chemical analysis reveals isotopic signatures that don't match known geological processes, hinting at artificial origins or unknown natural phenomena. Seismic surveys designed to map earthquake activity have detected acoustic anomalies beneath the ice sounds that don't correspond to known geological processes. These acoustic signatures sometimes display patterns that seem almost rhythmic, leading some researchers to theorize about underground water systems or gas vents. But the regularity of certain acoustic patterns has prompted speculation about other possible sources of organized sound beneath the ice. As Antarctic research becomes increasingly sophisticated, the line between natural wonder and artificial mystery continues to blur. Each technological advance reveals new anomalies that challenge conventional explanations, new formations that seem to bridge the gap between geology and archaeology. The continent's ice sheet, once thought to conceal nothing more than rock and prehistoric fossils, appears to hide a landscape of organized complexity that may preserve evidence of intelligence far older than recorded human history. The weight of accumulated evidence suggests that Antarctica's secrets extend far beyond what mainstream science has been willing to acknowledge. Beneath the ice lies not just a frozen continent, but potentially the preserved remains of civilizations that witnessed the end of one world and perhaps tried to ensure their survival into another. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, something disturbs the planet's magnetic field in ways that challenge our understanding of natural geological processes. The anomaly stretches across an area larger than Ohio, generating magnetic readings so intense and unusual that they interfere with satellite navigation systems and cause compass needles to spin wildly when aircraft pass overhead. Scientists call it the Wilkes Land Magnetic Anomaly, but its true nature remains one of Antarctica's most perplexing mysteries. The discovery emerged from routine aeromagnetic surveys conducted during the International Geophysical Year of 1957 to 1958, when researchers noticed that their instruments recorded magnetic field variations far exceeding anything previously detected on Earth. The readings suggested a massive concentration of magnetic material buried roughly a mile beneath the ice. circular in outline and uniform in density in ways that seem to defy natural explanation. Traditional geological wisdom attributed such magnetic anomalies to iron ore deposits or unusual rock formations created by ancient volcanic activity. But the Wilkes Land anomaly displays characteristics that stretch these explanations beyond their breaking point. The magnetic signature is not only stronger than any known natural formation, but it pulses with subtle variations that follow patterns too regular to be random. These fluctuations occur on cycles ranging from minutes to hours, suggesting organized activity rather than static geological features. Gravity measurements of the region reveal additional mysteries. The buried object, for lack of a better term, appears to have a mass distribution that defies conventional understanding of how geological formations develop. Instead of the irregular density variations typical of natural rock formations, gravitometric surveys detect a smooth, consistent mass that seems artificially uniform. The object's perfectly circular outline, combined with its extraordinary magnetic properties, suggests either unknown natural processes or something else entirely. Advanced magnetometry conducted by research stations across Antarctica has revealed that the Wilkes Land anomaly is not unique. Smaller magnetic disturbances displaying similar characteristics have been detected at sites scattered across the continent. These secondary anomalies seem to follow a geographical pattern, positioned at regular intervals that suggest design rather than coincidence. When plotted on maps, they form geometric relationships, triangular configurations, and linear arrangements that natural geological processes seldom produce. The magnetic fields generated by these anomalies interfere with sensitive electronic equipment in ways that seem almost purposeful. Navigation systems experience systematic errors rather than random interference. Radio communications develop specific distortion patterns. Satellite imagery becomes corrupted in predictable ways that suggest the magnetic fields are somehow organized, structured, focused. These effects extend vertically through the atmosphere, creating columns of electromagnetic disturbance that reach from the buried sources to the edge of space. Research conducted at McMurdo Station has documented temporal variations in the magnetic anomalies that correspond to celestial events. During solar flares, when the Earth's magnetosphere experiences heightened activity, the Antarctic magnetic disturbances intensify in patterns that suggest responsive behavior. The timing and magnitude of these variations imply that whatever creates the anomaly somehow interacts with cosmic electromagnetic phenomena in organized ways. Perhaps most puzzling of all, the magnetic anomalies seem to influence local weather patterns in subtle but measurable ways. Temperature variations above the buried sources follow patterns that don't match normal Antarctic meteorology. Wind currents shift in organized spirals that seem to originate from the locations of magnetic disturbance. Snow accumulation rates vary in geometric patterns that correspond exactly to the underground magnetic sources, as if the buried objects somehow influence atmospheric conditions above them. Dr. Ralph von Fries, the geophysicist who first identified the Wilkes Land anomaly's true magnitude, has suggested that it represents the remains of a massive asteroid impact from roughly 250 million years ago. The timing coincides with the Permian-Triassic extinction event, the most severe mass extinction in Earth's history. His theory proposes that a metallic asteroid, rich in iron and possibly other heavy elements, struck Antarctica and became buried beneath subsequent geological formations. However, this impact theory struggles to explain the anomaly's perfectly circular outline and uniform density distribution. Asteroid impacts typically create irregular crater patterns and scatter metallic debris across wide areas. The Wilkes Land anomaly displays none of these characteristics, instead presenting a magnetic signature that suggests organized, concentrated material arranged in geometric precision. Alternative theories propose that the anomalies represent unknown geological processes, perhaps metallic formations created by unique combinations of pressure, temperature, and electromagnetic activity that occurred during Antarctica's transition from temperate continent to frozen wasteland. The massive climate change that transformed Antarctica might have created conditions for mineral formation unlike anything observed elsewhere on Earth. Yet even these geological explanations struggle with the anomalies, responsive behavior, and geometric organization. Natural formations, however unusual, don't typically generate electromagnetic fields that pulse in organized patterns or respond to cosmic events with clockwork precision. The characteristics displayed by Antarctica's magnetic anomalies seem to require active processes rather than passive geological features. Recent advances in quantum magnetometry have revealed even stranger properties of the Antarctic magnetic fields. The anomalies appear to influence quantum particles in ways that suggest extraordinarily sophisticated electromagnetic organization. Quantum entanglement experiments conducted near the magnetic sources produce results that deviate from expected patterns, as if the buried objects somehow interfere with the fundamental structure of matter itself. As researchers continue to study Antarctica's magnetic mysteries, the evidence accumulates toward conclusions that challenge conventional scientific frameworks. The anomalies display too many organized characteristics, too much responsive behavior, too much geometric precision to be easily dismissed as natural curiosities. Whether they represent unknown geological processes, preserved remnants of ancient technology, or something else entirely, they suggest that Antarctica conceals secrets that extend far beyond frozen landscapes and prehistoric fossils. The magnetic anomalies may be trying to tell us something, sending signals across millions of years, waiting for intelligence sophisticated enough to decode their message. If so, we may be approaching the moment when Antarctica's greatest secret finally reveals itself, emerging from beneath the ice like a memory long forgotten but never truly lost. In the shadows of academic corridors where conventional archaeology fears to tread, a whisper persists that grows stronger with each new Antarctic discovery. The whisper speaks of connections that span continents and millennia, linking the frozen mysteries buried beneath polar ice to humanity's most enduring legend, the lost civilization of Atlantis, described by Plato as an advanced society that vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night of catastrophe. Plato's account, recorded in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 360 BCE, describes Atlantis as a maritime empire of extraordinary sophistication, possessing technology and knowledge that surpassed even the achievements of classical Greece. According to the philosopher's narrative, Atlantis controlled territories across the known world before divine judgment brought about its destruction through earthquakes and floods that swallowed the entire civilization beneath the ocean's surface. For centuries, scholars have dismissed Plato's Atlantis as philosophical allegory, a fictional society created to illustrate political ideals rather than historical reality. Yet as our understanding of Antarctica's hidden landscape expands, disturbing parallels emerge between the lost continent described by ancient Greeks and the buried secrets of Earth as southernmost landmass. Plato described Atlantis as a continent-sized island located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar in the Atlantic Ocean. He specified that it was larger than Libya and Asia combined, which in ancient geographical terms would place it roughly equivalent to Antarctica's actual size. The timing of Atlantis's destruction, which Plato dated to approximately 9600 BCE, corresponds remarkably well with geological evidence for rapid climate change that might have triggered Antarctica's transformation from temperate continent to frozen wasteland. The technological capabilities attributed to Atlantis bear striking similarities to what might be required for survival during Antarctica's climate catastrophe. Plato described advanced engineering projects, massive harbor installations, sophisticated irrigation systems, and architectural achievements that required moving enormous stone blocks across great distances. If an advanced civilization had recognized the approaching ice age, such engineering capabilities would be precisely what they would need to create underground refuges or preservation systems capable of surviving millions of years beneath accumulating ice. More intriguingly, Plato's description of Atlantis includes references to advanced navigation and map-making, exactly the kind of knowledge that might explain the geographical accuracy of ancient charts like the Piri Reis map. If Atlantean navigators had possessed global geographical knowledge, their records might have preserved information about continental configurations from periods when Antarctica was accessible and ice-free. The circular city design that Plato attributed to Atlantis' concentric rings of land and water surrounding a central island echoes the geometric patterns that modern radar surveys have detected beneath Antarctic ice. The perfectly circular outline of the Wilkes Land magnetic anomaly, combined with similar geometric formations discovered throughout the continent, suggests organized construction on a scale that matches Plato's descriptions of Atlantean engineering projects. Charles Hapgood, the researcher who studied ancient maps showing impossible geographical knowledge, proposed that Atlantis might have been Antarctica itself, a civilization that flourished on the continent before crustal displacement shifted it to its current polar position. His theory suggests that rapid geological changes, rather than simple climate transition, could have flash-frozen an entire civilization, preserving it intact beneath miles of ice that accumulated within decades rather than millennia. A mineral wealth that Plato attributed to Atlantis finds echoes in Antarctica's geological reality. The continent contains vast untapped reserves of coal, iron, gold, and other valuable materials resources that could have supported a technologically advanced civilization. The mysterious metallic concentrations they create, Antarctica as magnetic anomalies, might represent processed materials or technologies that ancient Atlanteans developed to harness their continent as mineral abundance. Plato's account includes references to Atlantean knowledge of metallurgy and materials science that exceeded contemporary Greek understanding. If such advanced materials knowledge existed, it might explain the unusual isotopic signatures found in Antarctic ice cores' metallic particles that seem to have artificial rather than natural origins. These microscopic artifacts could be the remnants of industrial processes conducted by a civilization sophisticated enough to work with materials unknown to modern science. The global influence that Plato attributed to Atlantis aligns with evidence for worldwide cultural connections that predate known historical contact between distant civilizations. Pyramid construction, astronomical knowledge, and sophisticated mathematics appear in cultures separated by oceans and millennia in ways that suggest common sources of advanced knowledge. If Antarctica had hosted a globally influential civilization before its ice age, such cultural diffusion might explain the mysterious appearance of advanced concepts in primitive societies worldwide. The catastrophic end that Plato described for Atlantis' divine judgment manifested through natural disasters mirrors the climate catastrophe that transformed Antarctica from garden to glacier. If an advanced Antarctic civilization had recognized the approaching crisis but failed to prevent it, their final records might have interpreted the climate change as divine punishment for technological hubris or moral failings. Perhaps most compellingly, Plato emphasized that knowledge of Atlantis survived only in the most ancient records, preserved by Egyptian priests whose institutional memory stretched back thousands of years before classical Greek civilization. If Antarctica had indeed hosted an advanced civilization, its influence on early human cultures might have created exactly the kind of fragmentary historical memories that Plato claimed to have inherited from ancient sources. The Egyptian connection adds another layer of intrigue to the Antarctic mystery. Ancient Egyptian texts contain references to a land of the gods located in the far south, beyond the known world, where divine beings possessed knowledge that surpassed human understanding. The precision of Egyptian astronomical knowledge, their advanced understanding of mathematics and engineering, and their apparent familiarity with geographical concepts that should not have been accessible to Bronze Age civilizations, might represent fragments of Atlantean knowledge preserved through cultural transmission. As researchers continue to uncover Antarctica's buried secrets, the parallels between Plato's Atlantis and Earth's frozen continent become increasingly difficult to ignore. Whether through coincidence, cultural memory, or direct historical connection, the legend of Atlantis may preserve humanity's last conscious memory of what lies beneath the ice. Civilization so advanced that its destruction seemed like the end of the world itself, leaving only myths and whispers to mark its passing, until technology finally became sophisticated enough to peer through miles of ice and glimpse the truth that has waited in frozen darkness for millions of years. Long before European explorers first glimpsed Antarctica's ice-shrouded shores, the indigenous peoples of the far southern latitudes spoke in hushed tones of lands beyond the great waters were strange. Lights danced in skies that never knew true darkness. These were not mere fairy tales spun around evening fires, but fragments of cultural memory that stretched back through countless generations, preserving knowledge of a southern continent that shouldn't have existed in their geographical understanding. The ancient Greeks, master cartographers and navigators of the classical world, possessed a curious certainty about the existence of Terra Australis incognita, the unknown southern land. This wasn't merely theoretical speculation about geographical balance, but a specific conviction that a massive continent existed in the far south to counterweight the known land masses of the northern hemisphere. Aristotle himself argued that such a southern continent must exist based on principles of cosmic symmetry, but Greek knowledge seemed to extend beyond mere philosophical reasoning. Ptolemy's world maps, created in the 2nd century CE, depicted a vast southern continent with remarkable specificity for a landmass that supposedly had never been seen. His charts showed not just the continent's general outline, but interior features, including mountain ranges, rivers, and coastal variations that wouldn't be confirmed until modern Antarctic exploration began in earnest. The precision of these ancient geographical concepts suggests sources of information that conventional history struggles to explain. Chinese chronicles from the Han Dynasty contain references to the land of eternal winter, located beyond the southern seas, describing a continent where the ground is white as jade and the sky touches the earth. These accounts include details about the southern continent's climate and geographical features that align remarkably well with Antarctica's actual characteristics. Trade route maps from ancient China show sailing directions towards southern lands that would lead directly toward Antarctica's position, suggesting that Chinese navigators possessed knowledge of the continent's location centuries before it was officially discovered. Polynesian oral traditions, preserved through generations of master navigators who memorized sailing directions with legendary precision, contain references to the White Land, located far to the south of their island territories. These navigational chants describe a continent surrounded by water that burns with cold and skies where the spirits of winter dance with light, descriptions that closely match Antarctica's auroral displays and frigid coastal conditions. The Polynesian navigation traditions include specific star courses that would guide vessels toward Antarctica, suggesting that their ancestors not only knew of the continent's existence, but had developed methods for reaching it. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia maintained Dreamtime stories that spoke of a great southern land where the ancestors sleep beneath endless snow and the earth remembers what came before the ice. These spiritual traditions describe the southern continent as a place of ancient power and preserved memory, where the spirits of the first people continue to guard secrets too important to be lost to time. Some Aboriginal accounts include references to journeys to the southern land undertaken by culture heroes who returned with knowledge that shaped their civilization's development. Viking sagas recorded in medieval Iceland contain cryptic references to lands beyond Greenland, where winter has no end and the sun travels in circles. While most scholars interpret these as descriptions of Arctic phenomena, some passages describe sailing south from known landmarks toward territories where the ice holds memories of the time before time. The precision of certain geographical references in these sagas suggests that Norse navigators might have possessed knowledge of southern polar regions that extended far beyond their officially recorded explorations. Hindu texts dating back over 2 millennia describe Shvetadvipa, the White Island, as a sacred land located in the far south, where divine beings preserve ancient wisdom through cosmic cycles of creation and destruction. These texts describe Shvetadvipa as a continent-sized landmass covered in eternal snow, inhabited by enlightened beings who possess knowledge spanning millions of years. The geographical and climatic descriptions in these ancient Sanskrit texts align remarkably well with Antarctica's actual characteristics. Native American traditions from both North and South America contain references to a land of spirits located at the bottom of the world, where the earth keeps what the sky has forgotten. Inca oral histories speak of expeditions mounted by their most skilled navigators toward southern waters, seeking the White Land, where their gods had preserved the knowledge of previous world cycles. Some accounts describe successful contact with the southern continent and the recovery of artifacts or information that influenced Inca astronomical and architectural knowledge. The consistency of these global traditions becomes even more remarkable when examined for specific details. Cultures separated by oceans and millennia describe Antarctica's location with striking accuracy, specify its ice-covered condition, and reference its role as a repository of ancient knowledge or spiritual power. The convergence of these diverse cultural memories suggests either remarkable coincidence or the preservation of actual historical contact with Antarctica across multiple civilizations. Medieval European maps showing Antarctica centuries before its official discovery often include notations crediting ancient sources for their geographical information. The Carta Marina of 1539, created by Olaus Magnus, shows a southern continent labeled Terra Australis, with geographical features that would not be confirmed until modern exploration. Magnus credited his sources as ancient navigators whose knowledge surpassed our own understanding, a reference that suggests European cartographers were incorporating much older geographical traditions into their work. The preservation of such detailed geographical knowledge across vast spans of time and cultural development requires institutional continuity that challenges conventional understanding of ancient civilizations' capabilities. Whether through maritime exploration, cultural exchange, or other means of knowledge transmission, multiple ancient cultures developed and maintained specific, accurate information about Antarctica that modern science has only recently been able to confirm. Perhaps most intriguingly, many of these ancient accounts describe Antarctica not as an empty wasteland, but as a continent that had hosted advanced civilizations in the distant past. The recurring theme of preserved ancient knowledge, or sleeping ancestors, suggests cultural memories of Antarctica as a center of learning and development, rather than merely a geographical curiosity. These traditions may preserve humanity's last conscious memory of what Antarctica was before the ice, and what might still be waiting beneath its frozen surface for rediscovery by cultures finally advanced enough to reach it. As modern exploration continues to reveal Antarctica's hidden complexities, these ancient traditions take on new significance. They may represent more than mythological curiosities or primitive geographical speculation. They might be humanity's oldest historical records, preserving across countless generations the memory of contact with a continent that held secrets important, enough to risk the most dangerous voyages imaginable to preserve and pass down through the ages. The annals of polar exploration read like epic poetry written in frostbite and determination, chronicling humanity's relentless drive to conquer the most inhospitable place on Earth. Yet beneath the celebrated accounts of heroism and scientific achievement, whispers persist of discoveries that never made it into official expedition reports, findings so extraordinary that they were either dismissed as hallucinations brought on by extreme cold or carefully omitted from public records to avoid ridicule or panic. Ernest Shackleton's Trans-Antarctic Expedition of 1914 to 1917, though remembered primarily for its miraculous survival story, produced cryptic journal entries that hint at encounters with phenomena that challenged the crew's understanding of Antarctica's nature. In his private notes, discovered decades after his death, Shackleton described architectural formations that seemed too regular for natural creation, observed during inland reconnaissance missions. These formations, according to his carefully worded descriptions, displayed geometric precision that suggested purposeful construction, though by whom or when remains a mystery that troubles the mind. The expedition's photographer, Frank Hurley, captured thousands of images during their ordeal, but several photographs from the collection show anomalous formations in the background structures, rising from the ice that do and correspond to known geological features. Modern analysis of these historical photographs has identified objects with linear edges and right angles that seem inconsistent with natural ice formations or wind-carved snowdrifts. The precise nature of these objects remains unexplained, but their presence in multiple photographs suggests they were substantial enough to attract repeated documentation. Robert Falcon, Scott's fatal expedition to the South Pole in 1910 to 1913, produced equally intriguing mysteries. Scott's journals, meticulously maintained until his final entries, contain references to unusual metallic objects observed protruding from glacier surfaces and cavern entrances of remarkable regularity that suggested artificial origin. These observations, recorded with the scientific precision for which Scott was renowned, describe phenomena that official expedition reports never mentioned and that subsequent expeditions have never adequately explained. Perhaps most mysteriously, Scott's team discovered what they described as manufactured artifacts during their inland journey, objects that appeared to be crafted from unknown materials and displayed workmanship that seemed impossible for the extreme conditions of Antarctica. These artifacts were reportedly collected for scientific analysis, but they never appeared in any museum collections or scientific publications. Their fate remains one of the enduring mysteries of polar exploration. Roald Amundsen's successful South Pole expedition of 1910 to 1912, celebrated for its flawless execution and triumphant return, produced its own share of enigmatic observations. Amundsen's team reported encountering areas of unusual warmth, where snow melted despite ambient temperatures that should have prevented such phenomena. They described patches of exposed ground that showed evidence of cultivation and plant remains that seemed too well preserved for their apparent age. The Norwegian explorer's private communications with colleagues hinted discoveries that challenged his understanding of Antarctica's history. Letters discovered in Norwegian archives describe his team's encounters with structural remnants that implied previous habitation and technological artifacts that suggested capabilities beyond current human achievement. These communications were written in coded language that scholars are still attempting to decipher, but their tone suggests discoveries that Amundsen considered too sensitive for public disclosure. Douglas Mawson's Australasian Antarctic expedition of 1911 to 1914 encountered phenomena that pushed the boundaries of scientific explanation even further. Mawson's detailed meteorological records document instances of localized electromagnetic disturbances that interfered with compass readings and produced aurora-like light displays in clear skies during periods when such phenomena should have been impossible. These electromagnetic anomalies seemed concentrated around specific geographical locations that Mawson's team marked on their maps, but never publicly explained. The expedition's geological surveys identified mineral compositions that did not match known Antarctic geology metallic substances that appeared to have been processed or refined by unknown methods. Samples collected by Mawson's team were submitted to laboratories in Australia and Britain, but the analysis results were classified and never published. Contemporary scientists who examined these materials reportedly expressed bewilderment at their composition and structure. leading to speculation about either unknown natural processes or artificial origins. Admiral Richard Byrd has numerous Antarctic expeditions throughout the 1920s and 1930s produced the most extensive collection of anomalous observations in polar exploration history. Byrd's aerial surveys revealed geographical features that didn't appear on any previous map, structures that seemed too geometric for natural formation, and displayed organizational patterns that suggested design rather than random geological processes. His flight logs contain careful descriptions of these formations, but official expedition reports omitted most such observations. Byrd's private journals, released by his family decades after his death, describe encounters with phenomena that he struggled to explain within conventional scientific frameworks. He wrote of observing cities beneath the ice, visible through aerial reconnaissance, structures that displayed architectural sophistication that challenged assumptions about Antarctica's history. These observations, recorded with the methodical precision of a career naval officer, describe discoveries that conventional Antarctica research has never adequately addressed. The consistency of anomalous observations across multiple expeditions, recorded by explorers known for their scientific rigor and attention to detail, suggests that Antarctica conceals phenomena that extend far beyond what official exploration records acknowledge. These early explorers, operating without modern communication systems or institutional oversight, may have documented discoveries that later expeditions either failed to encounter or were instructed to suppress. The pattern of classified materials and suppressed findings that emerge from early Antarctic exploration raises questions about institutional responses to discoveries that challenged conventional understanding of the continent as nature. Whether through scientific caution, government security concerns, or other factors, the official record of Antarctic exploration appears to have systematically omitted observations that might have revolutionized our understanding of human history and the planet's past. As modern technology finally provides the tools to investigate Antarctica's hidden landscape comprehensively, these historical accounts take on new significance. They may represent the first documented contact with secrets that have waited beneath the ice for millions of years, secrets that early explorers glimpsed but could neither fully understand nor safely reveal to a world not yet prepared for such profound revelations about humanity's past and the true nature of our planet as most mysterious continent. In the austral summer of 1946-1947, the largest military expedition in Antarctic history assembled in the icy waters surrounding the world's most isolated continent. Operation Highjump, officially designated as a scientific research mission, deployed 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and over 4,000 personnel to Antarctica under the command of Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Yet behind the expedition's stated goals of mapping coastlines and testing equipment in extreme conditions, whispers persist of discoveries so extraordinary that they remain classified nearly 8 decades later. The official mission parameters seemed straightforward enough: establish research bases, conduct aerial photography of previously unmapped regions, and test military equipment under polar conditions. The scale of the operation, however, suggested objectives that extended far beyond routine scientific research. Never before had any nation committed such massive resources to Antarctic exploration, and the expedition's military composition raised questions about the true nature of what they expected to encounter in the frozen wasteland. Admiral Byrd's public statements before departure hinted at expectations that went beyond conventional exploration. He spoke of Antarctica as a land of mystery that might contain resources and discoveries that could change our understanding of the world. His choice of words, carefully crafted for public consumption, carried undertones that suggested the expedition's organizers possessed information about Antarctica that hadn't been shared with the general public. The expedition's aircraft conducted extensive aerial surveys of previously unexplored regions, photographing thousands of square miles of Antarctic territory with cameras specifically designed for detailed reconnaissance work. These aerial surveys revealed geographical features that didn't match existing map structures that appeared too geometric for natural formation, arranged in patterns that suggested organization rather than random geological processes. The photographs captured formations that bore striking resemblances to architectural complexes, complete with what appeared to be roadways, courtyards, and multi-level structures. Flight logs from the expedition's reconnaissance missions contain references to phenomena that challenged the aircrew's understanding of Antarctic conditions. Pilots reported areas of unusual warmth where ice showed signs of melting despite ambient temperatures well below freezing. They described electromagnetic disturbances that interfered with navigation equipment in ways that suggested powerful, organized magnetic fields emanating from beneath the ice surface. Perhaps most remarkably, several flight crews reported visual contact with objects that seemed to display intelligent movement patterns. These objects, described as disc-shaped and metallic, appeared to demonstrate flight capabilities that exceeded any known aircraft technology. The objects reportedly exhibited speeds and maneuverability that defied conventional aerodynamics, performing impossible turns and accelerations before disappearing into cloud cover or beneath the ice surface. Admiral Byrd's personal log, portions of which were released decades after the expedition, contains entries that describe encounters with advanced aerial craft of unknown origin and geographical features that suggested previous habitation by beings of superior technology. These accounts, written in Byrd's characteristic measured prose, detail observations that challenged his understanding of Antarctica as an empty continent shaped only by natural geological processes. The expedition's geological surveys identified mineral concentrations that didn't correspond to known Antarctic geology. Core samples revealed metallic substances with isotopic compositions that suggested artificial processing or origins from unknown natural processes. These materials were classified upon the expedition's return and transferred to secure facilities where they're rare. Analysis apparently produced results too sensitive for public disclosure. Communications between expedition members and their home bases, monitored by multiple intelligence agencies, reportedly contained references to structures of impossible age and technological artifacts that implied capabilities beyond current human achievement. These communications were heavily censored before any information reached the public, and original transcripts remain classified despite decades of Freedom of Information Act requests. The expedition's abrupt termination, after only 8 weeks of a planned 8-month mission, has never been adequately explained. Official reports cite equipment failures and harsh weather conditions, but expedition members were reportedly ordered to maintain strict silence about their activities and observations. Many personnel were transferred to classified assignments immediately upon their return, and several key expedition members died under mysterious circumstances within years of Operation Highjump's conclusion. Dr. Paul Seipel, the expedition's chief scientist, produced classified reports that have never been released despite their scientific nature. Colleagues who had access to these documents before their classification described them as containing discoveries that challenged fundamental assumptions about Antarctic history and evidence of previous habitation by unknown entities possessing advanced technology. The expedition's photographic documentation, officially comprising over 70,000 aerial photographs, has never been fully released to the public. The images that have been declassified show geographical features that don't match current Antarctic maps, but the most intriguing photographs remain under security classification. Researchers who have examined portions of the classified collection describe images showing structural complexes of obvious artificial origin and technological installations that appeared to be of non-human design. Follow-up expeditions to regions explored during Operation Highjump have reportedly encountered similar phenomena, but subsequent missions have operated under much stricter security protocols. The pattern of classified findings and suppressed documentation suggests that Operation Highjump discovered something in Antarctica that, government authorities considered too sensitive for public knowledge. Recent declassified documents hint at international agreements that restrict access to specific Antarctic regions, ostensibly for environmental protection, but possibly to prevent unauthorized investigation of sites where Operation Highjump made its most sensitive discoveries. These protected areas correspond remarkably well with locations where the CHR expedition's most anomalous observations were recorded, suggesting ongoing efforts to control access to whatever secrets lie beneath Antarctica's ice. As modern technology makes Antarctic exploration increasingly sophisticated and accessible, the mysteries surrounding Operation Highjump take on new relevance. The expedition may have been humanity's first official contact with secrets that challenge our understanding of terrestrial history. Secrets so profound that they have remained classified for nearly 8 decades, while governments struggle to determine how such revelations might affect human civilization as understanding of its place in the cosmic order. In the shadows of World War II's most documented atrocities, a lesser-known chapter unfolds in the pristine wilderness of Antarctica, where Nazi expeditions ventured into the frozen continent's interior on missions shrouded in scientific secrecy and occult speculation. The Third Reich's Antarctic activities, officially dismissed as routine geographical research, may have uncovered discoveries so extraordinary that they influenced the war's final stages and continue to generate conspiracy theories nearly 8 decades later. The German Antarctic expedition of 1938-1939, led by Captain Alfred Richer aboard the vessel Schwabenland, ostensibly aimed to establish Germany's territorial claims in Antarctica and survey potential whaling stations for the Reich's struggling economy. Yet the expedition's composition, including specialists in metallurgy, geology, and electromagnetic research, alongside traditional explorers, suggested objectives that extended far beyond commercial whaling or geographical mapping. The expedition's aerial surveys covered vast stretches of previously unexplored Antarctic territory, employing advanced photography equipment and electromagnetic sensing devices that were state-of-the-art for the period. These flights documented geographical features with unprecedented precision, creating detailed maps of inland regions that wouldn't be surveyed again until satellite technology became available decades later. The thoroughness of German mapping efforts suggests they were searching for specific features or phenomena rather than conducting routine geographical surveys. Richer's expedition reports, captured by Allied forces after Germany's defeat, contain references to unusual geological formations and electromagnetic anomalies that suggested artificial origins. These observations, recorded with characteristic German scientific precision, describe phenomena that challenged conventional understanding of Antarctic geology. The reports document the discovery of ice-free valleys, warm springs, and mineral concentrations that seemed inconsistent with Antarctica's hostile climate. Perhaps most intriguingly, the expedition's electromagnetic surveys detected powerful magnetic fields emanating from beneath the ice in patterns too regular to represent natural geological phenomena. These magnetic anomalies were mapped with extraordinary precision and seemed to follow geometric arrangements that suggested design rather than random geological formation. The expedition's magnetometer readings revealed underground structures that appeared to generate organized electromagnetic activity. Following the official expedition's return to Germany, rumors persist of secret follow-up missions that operated throughout the war years under deep cover. These clandestine expeditions allegedly transported advanced technology and personnel to establish permanent research stations in Antarctica's interior, taking advantage of the continent's isolation to conduct experiments too sensitive for European locations. While no concrete evidence of such activities has been conclusively verified, circumstantial evidence suggests German presence in Antarctica continued long after the 1939 expedition's official conclusion. The Nazi regime's well-documented interest in occult research and alternative archaeology provides context for their Antarctic activities that extends beyond mere territorial claims or resource exploitation. Leading Nazi officials, including Heinrich Himmler and Rudolf Hess, actively pursued theories about ancient civilizations and lost technologies that might provide military advantages. Antarctica, with its reputation for containing preserved relics from prehistoric periods, would have been an irresistible target for such research programs. Declassified documents from Operation Paperclip, the Allied program that recruited German scientists after the war, contain references to Antarctic research projects that involved technologies far in advance of current scientific understanding. These documents describe German experiments with electromagnetic propulsion systems, advanced metallurgy, and energy sources that seem to derive from discoveries made in Antarctica during wartime expeditions. Werner von Braun, the German rocket scientist who later led America's space program, reportedly made cryptic references to discoveries made in the southern ice that influenced German technological development during the war's final years. While von Braun never publicly elaborated on these statements, colleagues reported that he seemed to possess knowledge of advanced propulsion principles that exceeded conventional rocket technology. The timing of Nazi Germany as most advanced technological developments correlates remarkably with the period following their Antarctic expeditions. The development of jet engines, guided missiles, and other innovations that seemed to leap ahead of natural technological progression may have been influenced by discoveries made in Antarctica's hidden landscape. German engineering achievements during this period displayed characteristics that suggested access to information or materials not available through conventional research. Allied intelligence reports from the war's final months describe German activities in Antarctica that seemed designed to preserve personnel and technology for post-war continuation. These reports, heavily censored and classified for decades after the war's end, reference underground installations and advanced transportation systems that would have required massive resources and sophisticated engineering. The scale of these alleged installations suggests objectives that extended far beyond wartime military needs. The fate of numerous high-ranking Nazi officials who disappeared during Germany's collapse has never been definitively established. While many fled to South America through established ratlands, some researchers theorize that others escaped to secret installations in Antarctica, where German expeditions had discovered refuges suitable for long-term habitation. The continent's extreme isolation and hostile conditions would have provided perfect security for fugitives seeking to avoid capture by Allied forces. Submarine activity in Antarctic waters during and after the war generated numerous mysterious incidents that official naval records have never adequately explained. U-boats reportedly appeared in southern waters, far from any known German bases, suggesting secret supply lines or hidden installations that supported extended operations in polar regions. Some of these submarines carried unusual cargo and personnel whose destinations remain classified in naval archives. The connection between Nazi Antarctic activities and advanced technology development creates a troubling pattern that suggests the discovery of information or materials that accelerated German scientific progress beyond normal evolutionary development. Whether through archaeological discoveries, technological artifacts, or other sources of advanced knowledge, Nazi expeditions may have encountered secrets in Antarctica that influenced the course of human technological development. Modern investigations of former Nazi expedition sites in Antarctica have been hampered by international treaties and classified restrictions that seem disproportionate to the historical significance of routine geographical surveys. The continuing sensitivity surrounding these locations suggests that whatever the Germans discovered in Antarctica remains relevant to contemporary strategic interests, implying that their findings may have had implications extending far beyond the Third Reich's wartime objectives. In the quiet corners of scientific conferences and the hushed conversations of polar research stations, stories circulate that never appear in peer-reviewed journals or official expedition reports. These are the accounts of researchers who claim to have encountered phenomena in Antarctica that challenge not only their scientific understanding, but their fundamental assumptions about human history and our planet's past. While mainstream science dismisses such claims as hallucinations brought on by extreme conditions or the fantasies of isolated minds, the consistency of these reports across decades of Antarctic research suggests something more troubling than collective delusion. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a glaciologist who spent 3 seasons at the Vostok Research Station during the 1990s, reported discovering what appeared to be artificial structures visible through the ice during deep core drilling operations. According to her carefully documented notes, which were later confiscated by station administrators, the structures displayed geometric precision that seemed inconsistent with natural geological formation. Her descriptions included references to architectural elements that suggested advanced engineering and metallic components that appeared to have been manufactured rather than formed by natural processes. The official response to Dr. Vasquez's reports followed a pattern that has become disturbingly familiar in Antarctic research. Her observations were classified as scientifically unverifiable and removed from the station's research database. She was reassigned to Arctic research positions and required to sign confidentiality agreements that prohibited discussion of her Antarctic experiences. Colleagues who attempted to investigate her claims found themselves facing similar restrictions and career setbacks. Professor James Chun, a geophysicist who participated in seismic surveys near Lake Ellsworth in 2003, documented acoustic anomalies that seemed to originate from beneath the lake's floor. His recordings captured sound patterns that displayed rhythmic characteristics inconsistent with known geological processes. Analysis of these audio samples revealed frequencies and harmonics that seemed artificially generated, leading Chun to theorize about possible technological sources beneath the ice. Chun's attempts to publish his findings met with institutional resistance that effectively ended his Antarctic research career. Peer reviewers consistently rejected his papers on grounds of insufficient evidence, despite the objective nature of his acoustic data. Research grants for follow-up investigations were denied without explanation, and Chun found himself excluded from future Antarctic expeditions. His original recordings disappeared from institutional archives, and backup copies were reportedly destroyed in a routine data purge. The case of Dr. Sarah Morrison, a marine biologist who investigated microbial life in subglacial lakes during the 2010 research season, presents perhaps the most disturbing example of scientific suppression in modern Antarctic research. Morrison reported discovering microorganisms with genetic structures that didn't match any known terrestrial life forms. Her preliminary analysis suggested that these organisms possessed DNA sequences that seemed artificially modified or enhanced beyond what natural evolution typically produces. Morrison's research samples were confiscated before she could complete her analysis, and her preliminary findings were classified under biological security, protocols typically reserved for potential weapons research. She was debriefed by personnel who were unaffiliated with any known Antarctic research organization and required to submit to psychological evaluation before being cleared for future research activities. Her published papers on Antarctic microbiology make no reference to the anomalous organisms she reportedly discovered. Technician Michael Torres, responsible for maintaining communication equipment at McMurdo Station during multiple research seasons, documented repeated instances of intercepted radio transmissions that seemed to originate from uninhabited regions of Antarctica's interior. These signals displayed characteristics that suggested advanced communication technology rather than natural electromagnetic phenomena. Torres's logs described transmissions with digital encoding patterns that exceeded the sophistication of known research station equipment. Torres's reports of anomalous communications were initially investigated by station security personnel, but the investigation was suddenly terminated and classified without explanation. Torres was transferred to Arctic research positions, and prohibited from discussing his observations. Attempts by investigative journalists to interview Torres were blocked by legal injunctions citing national security concerns. The pattern of scientific suppression extends beyond individual researchers to institutional policies that seem designed to prevent investigation of specific Antarctic phenomena. Research proposals that reference anomalous observations or seek to investigate unexplained Antarctic mysteries face systematic rejection, regardless of their scientific merit or the credentials of their authors. Funding agencies consistently cite resource limitations or security restrictions when denying grants for research that might shed light on Antarctica's hidden secrets. Dr. Robert Hayes, a former NSF program manager who oversaw Antarctic research funding for over a decade, has spoken privately about institutional pressures to discourage investigation of sensitive Antarctic phenomena. According to Hayes, research proposals that touched on anomalous observations or unexplained discoveries were routinely flagged for security review and rarely received approval for funding. He described a systematic effort to channel Antarctic research towards safe topics that would unchallenge established scientific narratives or raise uncomfortable questions about the continent's hidden features. The digital age has brought new methods of information control to Antarctic research. Electronic communications between Antarctic research stations are routinely monitored and filtered, with messages containing references to anomalous observations often disappearing from server logs. Researchers report that their emails and data transmissions are subjected to automated screening that identifies and removes content deemed inappropriate for transmission. Social media posts by Antarctic researchers face similar restrictions. Platforms regularly remove images or videos from Antarctica that show unexplained phenomena, citing community standards violations that seem specifically targeted at suppressing documentation of unusual discoveries. Researchers who persist in sharing such material find their accounts suspended or deleted without explanation. The cumulative effect of these suppression efforts has created a culture of self-censorship within the Antarctic research community. Scientists who observe phenomena that don't fit established paradigms increasingly choose to remain silent rather than risk career destruction. This silence may be concealing discoveries that could revolutionize our understanding of human history, planetary development, and perhaps even our place in the cosmic order. The whispers of forbidden discoveries continue to circulate within the tight-knit community of polar researchers, passed along through private conversations and coded references that avoid triggering institutional monitoring systems. These accounts speak of structures beneath the ice, technologies that predate human civilization, and evidence of intelligence that challenges our understanding of terrestrial evolution. Whether these whispers represent suppressed truth or collective delusion may depend on our willingness to question the official narratives that surround Antarctica's most closely guarded secrets. The transformation of Antarctica from a lush, temperate continent teeming with life into the frozen wasteland we know today represents one of the most dramatic climate catastrophes in Earth's geological history. Yet beneath the conventional narrative of gradual cooling and ice accumulation lies a darker possibility that this transformation occurred with catastrophic suddenness, flash freezing entire ecosystems and potentially preserving whatever civilizations might have evolved during Antarctica's millions of years of habitability. Mainstream geology tells us that Antarctica's ice age developed over millions of years as the continent drifted toward the South Pole. Ocean currents shifted to isolate it from warming influences. This gradual cooling model suggests that life forms had ample time to migrate to more hospitable regions or adapt to changing conditions through natural evolutionary processes. But growing evidence points toward a far more dramatic scenario, a sudden climate catastrophe that transformed Antarctica's environment within decades rather than millennia. The Younger Dryas period, approximately 12,900 years ago, provides a recent example of how rapidly global climate systems can shift. During this event, global temperatures plummeted by as much as 15 degrees Fahrenheit within decades, causing ice sheets to advance rapidly across previously temperate regions. The speed of this climate change was so extreme that entire forests were buried under advancing glaciers, their trees still standing where ice sheets overwhelmed them. If similar catastrophic cooling could occur during human history, what might have happened during Antarctica's much more ancient transition from green continent to frozen wasteland? The evidence suggests that Antarctica's climate catastrophe may have been even more severe and sudden than the Younger Dryas, potentially triggered by cosmic events or geological processes that conventional science has yet to fully understand. Charles Hapgood's theory of rapid crustal displacement proposes that Antarctica's ice age resulted not from gradual climate change, but from sudden shifts in the Earth's crust that moved continents to new positions relative to the poles within a matter of decades. According to this theory, Antarctica once occupied a more temperate latitude before crustal displacement suddenly shifted it to its current polar position, causing instant climate catastrophe that flash froze everything on the continent's surface. While Hapgood's crustal displacement theory remains controversial, it offers explanations for several puzzling aspects of Antarctica's geological record. The continent's coal deposits, formed from ancient forests, show no signs of gradual environmental stress that would be expected from slow climate change. Instead, the fossil record suggests that lush vegetation was thriving right up until the point when it was suddenly buried and preserved under rapidly accumulating ice. Recent research into cosmic impact events provides another possible trigger for Antarctica's sudden climate catastrophe. The discovery of impact craters and cosmic debris layers in geological strata suggests that Earth has been struck by massive asteroids or comets multiple times throughout its history. Such impacts could have triggered rapid climate change through atmospheric dust clouds, volcanic activity, or direct effects on ocean circulation patterns. The Wilkes Land anomaly, that mysterious magnetic formation buried beneath Antarctic ice, may represent evidence of just such a cosmic impact. If a massive metallic asteroid struck Antarctica during its temperate period, the impact could have triggered sudden climate change while simultaneously burying evidence of whatever civilizations existed on the continent at the time. The perfect preservation conditions created by rapid freezing might have sealed entire cities, libraries, and populations beneath miles of ice that accumulated within years of the impact. Volcanic activity offers another potential mechanism for sudden climate catastrophe. Massive volcanic eruptions can alter global climate patterns within months by injecting ash and gases into the atmosphere. If Antarctica experienced sudden volcanic activity during its temperate period, the resulting climate change could have triggered rapid ice formation that preserved whatever existed on the continent as surface at the moment of catastrophe. The geological evidence for rapid freezing appears throughout Antarctica's ice record. Ice cores show abrupt transitions from temperate climate indicators to full glacial conditions, sometimes within layers representing just a few years of accumulation. These sharp transitions suggest environmental changes that occurred far too rapidly for gradual adaptation or migration, implying that whatever life existed on Antarctica during its temperate period faced sudden extinction or preservation. Perhaps most intriguingly, the preservation quality of organic material found in Antarctic ice suggests freezing so rapid that cellular structures remained intact even at the molecular level. This level of preservation typically requires temperatures that drop far below freezing within hours or days, not the gradual cooling that conventional geology describes. Such rapid freezing could preserve not just individual organisms, but entire ecosystems, complete with their social structures, technologies, and cultural achievements. If intelligent life had evolved on Antarctica during its millions of years of habitability, a sudden climate catastrophe would have presented an unprecedented survival challenge. Unlike gradual climate change that allows for migration or adaptation, sudden catastrophic cooling would have trapped entire populations with little time for organized evacuation. However, an advanced civilization that recognized the approaching crisis might have taken extraordinary measures to ensure survival, perhaps by creating underground refuges or developing preservation technologies that could sustain life through the coming ice age. The flash freezing hypothesis also explains why Antarctica might contain preserved evidence of advanced civilizations, while other continents show no similar archaeological remains. Gradual climate change allows time for structures to decay, artifacts to be scattered, and organic materials to decompose. But sudden preservation through rapid freezing could maintain entire civilizations in pristine condition, creating a frozen museum of whatever intelligence existed on Antarctica before the Ice Age began. Modern climate research reveals that Earth's climate systems are far less stable than previously believed. Tipping points exist where small changes can trigger massive, irreversible shifts in global weather patterns. Antarctica's climate catastrophe may represent one such tipping point event, a sudden transition that transformed the continent so rapidly that everything existing on its surface became trapped in crystalline suspension, waiting for technology advanced enough to retrieve and examine what lies beneath the ice. The possibility of sudden climate catastrophe raises profound questions about Earth's stability and humanity's future. If Antarctica's ice age resulted from rapid crustal displacement, cosmic impact, or other catastrophic events, similar disasters could potentially affect other continents with little warning. The secrets buried beneath Antarctic ice may include not just evidence of lost civilizations, but warnings about cosmic or geological processes that could threaten our own civilization's survival. As we stand on the threshold of potentially discovering what lies beneath Antarctica's ice, we must prepare ourselves for revelations that might challenge not only our understanding of the past, but our assumptions about the future. The frozen cataclysm that created Antarctica's ice age may have preserved evidence of previous civilizations, attempts to survive global catastrophe knowledge that could prove essential for our own species' long-term survival on an unstable planet. Beneath Antarctica's massive ice sheet, ground-penetrating radar has revealed a landscape that challenges our assumptions about what lies hidden in the frozen continent's interior. Vast cavern systems stretch for hundreds of miles through the bedrock, some large enough to house entire cities. Subglacial lakes dot the hidden landscape like jewels, their liquid water maintained by geothermal heat sources. They create pockets of temperate climate in the midst of the world's most frozen environment. These discoveries have given rise to theories that Antarctica may conceal not just buried ruins, but active underground civilizations that have survived the Ice Age in hidden refuges. The scale of Antarctica's subglacial cave systems defies easy comprehension. Radar surveys have mapped tunnel networks that extend from the coast deep into the continent's interior, following patterns too organized to represent simple geological formation. These passages maintain consistent dimensions across vast distances, suggesting either extraordinary natural processes or artificial construction by intelligence capable of engineering projects that dwarf any known human achievement. Lake Vostok, the largest known subglacial lake, spans an area comparable to Lake Ontario and reaches depths of over 1,000 feet. But Vostok represents just one of nearly 400 subglacial lakes that have been identified beneath Antarctic ice. These bodies of liquid water exist in perpetual darkness, insulated from the surface by miles of ice and warmed by geothermal sources that maintain temperatures suitable for complex life forms. The discovery that such environments exist beneath Antarctica has revolutionized scientific understanding of where life might survive on Earth and potentially on other worlds. The conditions within these subglacial environments present possibilities that extend far beyond simple microbial life. Constant temperatures protected from cosmic radiation by miles of ice overhead, supplied with mineral-rich water from geothermal sources. These are precisely the conditions that could support not just life but complex ecosystems and potentially even technological civilizations that adapted to subterranean existence. Sonar surveys of subglacial lakes have detected acoustic signatures that do correspond to known geological or biological phenomena. These sounds display rhythmic patterns and harmonic structures that suggest organized activity rather than random natural processes. While mainstream science attributes these acoustic anomalies to water movement or geological settling, some researchers theorize that they might represent evidence of technological activity within the sealed lake systems. The hollow ice theories propose that Antarctica's underground spaces might host not just surviving ecosystems from the continents as pre-ice age period, but actual civilizations that recognized the approaching climate catastrophe and adapted their technology and society for subterranean survival. Such civilizations would have had millions of years to develop technologies suited for underground existence, potentially achieving capabilities that far exceed surface-dwelling human civilization. Advanced ice-penetrating radar has revealed structural anomalies within the cavern systems that seem inconsistent with natural formation. Regular geometric patterns, right angles, and symmetrical arrangements appear in the radar returns, suggesting constructed rather than naturally formed spaces. These structures display architectural characteristics that imply purposeful design for habitation, with what appear to be chambers, corridors, and multi-level arrangements. The electromagnetic anomalies detected throughout Antarctica take on new significance when considered in the context of hollow ice theories. Powerful magnetic fields and organized electromagnetic activity might represent not just unusual geological phenomena, but the technological signatures of underground civilizations that have developed energy systems based on principles unknown to surface science. Such technologies could explain the persistent electromagnetic disturbances that interfere with modern Antarctic research equipment. Thermal imaging satellites have detected areas of unusual heat emanating from beneath the ice sheet, creating patterns of surface warming that don't correspond to known geothermal sources. These thermal signatures appear in geometric arrangements that suggest artificial heat sources rather than natural geothermal activity. The precise organization of these heat sources implies technological systems that generate and distribute energy across vast underground networks. The hollow ice theories also offer explanations for the acoustic anomalies detected by seismic monitoring stations throughout Antarctica. Low-frequency sounds that seem to travel through the continent's interior display characteristics that suggest artificial rather than natural origins. These acoustic signatures sometimes form patterns that resemble communication systems, leading to speculation that they might represent technological activity within Antarctica's hidden spaces. Access to these underground environments would require technology far beyond current human capabilities. The ice sheets above the cavern systems reach depths of several miles, creating pressures that would crush conventional excavation equipment. However, civilizations that had millions of years to develop specialized technologies might have created systems for maintaining access to surface regions while preserving their underground refuges. The preservation conditions within Antarctica subglacial environments would be ideal for maintaining technological artifacts and even organic specimens across vast periods of time. Constant near-freezing temperatures, protection from cosmic radiation, and isolation from surface contamination would create natural museums where advanced civilizations could preserve their achievements for future discovery by species advanced enough to reach them. Recent discoveries of complex organic compounds in samples from subglacial lakes suggest that these environments support much more sophisticated biochemistry than previously believed. While mainstream science interprets these compounds as evidence of unusual microbial activity, their molecular complexity and organization patterns could potentially represent the biochemical signatures of advanced life forms adapted to subglacial existence. The hollow ice theories extend beyond simple speculation about underground civilizations to encompass possibilities about how such civilizations might interact with the surface world. If technological civilizations exist beneath Antarctica's ice, they might possess capabilities for monitoring surface activities and potentially even influencing events in the outside world through methods that remain undetectable to current human technology. The implications of hollow ice theories challenge our understanding not just of Antarctica, but of planetary evolution and the potential for intelligence to survive cosmic catastrophes. If civilizations can adapt to subglacial existence and maintain technological capabilities across millions of years, it suggests that intelligence might be far more resilient and persistent than we have imagined. The frozen continent that we perceive as lifeless and barren might actually conceal the most advanced civilizations ever to develop on Earth, patient and hidden, but very much alive in the dark spaces beneath the ice. 4 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, sealed away from the surface world for perhaps 20 million years, lies a body of water larger than Lake Ontario that may harbor the most profound secrets in terrestrial history. Lake Vostok exists in perpetual darkness, its liquid water maintained at just below freezing by geothermal heat sources that create a hidden world of impossible possibilities. This sealed ecosystem has evolved in complete isolation, developing life forms that could redefine our understanding of biology and potentially preserving evidence of intelligence that predates human civilization by millions of years. The lake's discovery challenged fundamental assumptions about what environments can sustain life on Earth. Previously, scientists believed that complex life required sunlight, stable temperatures, and regular contact with atmospheric systems. Lake Vostok demonstrates that sophisticated ecosystems can thrive in conditions that seem utterly hostile to life. Sealed beneath crushing ice and isolated from all surface influences except the occasional cosmic ray that penetrates. Miles of frozen water. Russian researchers at Vostok Station, the most remote and isolated research facility on Earth, have spent decades attempting to penetrate the lake's pristine environment. Their drilling operations, conducted with extraordinary care to avoid contaminating this unique ecosystem, have yielded ice cores that contain microscopic evidence of life forms unlike anything found elsewhere on our planet. These organisms display genetic characteristics that suggest either extraordinary evolutionary adaptation or origins that challenge conventional understanding of terrestrial biology. The organisms recovered from Lake Vostok's ice contain DNA sequences that do and match any known terrestrial life forms. Their genetic structures display complexity and organization that exceed what natural evolution typically produces, suggesting either highly accelerated evolutionary processes or genetic modification by intelligence capable of manipulating life at the molecular level. Some samples contain what appear to be artificial genetic marker sequences, too organized and purposeful to represent random evolutionary development. Perhaps most remarkably, some of the recovered organisms appear to be technological in nature, displaying characteristics that blur the boundary between biology and engineering. These entities possess structures that seem designed for specific functions rather than naturally evolved, with geometric forms and material compositions that suggest artificial rather than natural origins. Their cellular organization follows patterns that resemble manufactured systems more than naturally developed life forms. Sonar surveys of Lake Vostok have revealed acoustic signatures that do and correspond to known geological or biological phenomena. The lake generates sounds that display rhythmic patterns and harmonic structures, suggesting organized activity rather than random water movement or geological settling. These acoustic patterns sometimes form sequences that resemble technological communication systems, leading to speculation that the lake might host intelligence capable of generating organized signals. The lake's floor displays magnetic anomalies that suggest the presence of large metallic objects or structures. These magnetic signatures appear too organized and geometric to represent natural mineral deposits, instead displaying characteristics that imply artificial construction. Gravimetric surveys confirm that dense objects of unusual composition rest on the lake's bottom, their mass distribution following patterns that suggest purposeful arrangement rather than random geological deposition. Thermal imaging of Lake Vostok reveals temperature distributions that seem inconsistent with simple geothermal heating. Instead of the random hot spots that would be expected from natural geothermal sources, the lake displays organized temperature patterns that suggest controlled heat distribution systems. These thermal signatures imply technological infrastructure capable of managing energy across the lake's entire ecosystem. The water chemistry of Lake Vostok presents additional mysteries that challenge conventional understanding of isolated ecosystems. The lake contains concentrations of rare metals and unusual molecular compounds that do and occur naturally in Antarctic geology. These substances appear to have been introduced by unknown processes, suggesting either extraordinary geological phenomena or technological activity that has altered the lake's chemical composition. Ice cores extracted from above Lake Vostok contain microscopic particles that appear to be manufactured rather than naturally formed. These particles display geometric structures and material compositions that suggest advanced manufacturing techniques beyond current human capabilities. Their presence in ice layers dating back millions of years implies that technological activity occurred in or around the lake long before human civilization developed on Earth. Electromagnetic properties of Lake Vostok create fields that interfere with research equipment in ways that suggest organized rather than random magnetic phenomena. These electromagnetic disturbances follow patterns that seem purposeful, creating systematic interference with specific types of instruments while leaving others unaffected. Such selective electromagnetic activity implies technological systems capable of sophisticated electromagnetic control. Russian researchers have reported discovering what appear to be artificial structures on Lake Vostok's floor during sonar mapping operations. These structures display architectural characteristics: right angles, symmetrical arrangements, multi-level configurations that seem inconsistent with natural geological formation. While official reports describe these formations as unusual sediment deposits, their geometric precision suggests purposeful construction by intelligence capable of underwater engineering. The isolation that has preserved Lake Vostok as a unique ecosystem might also have preserved evidence of intelligence that existed during Antarctica as temperate period. If advanced civilizations flourished on the continent before its ice age, Lake Vostok could serve as a natural time capsule, maintaining artifacts, technologies, and even living specimens in perfect preservation across millions of years of isolation. The lake's ecosystem demonstrates that complex life can survive in environments previously thought impossible, raising profound questions about the potential for intelligence to adapt to extreme conditions. If technological civilizations can develop survival strategies for complete isolation beneath miles of ice, similar adaptations might exist elsewhere on Earth or on other worlds with apparently hostile conditions. Recent discoveries in Lake Vostok suggest that the boundary between biology and technology might be far more fluid than previously imagined. The organisms and structures found in the lake seem to represent a form of existence that transcends traditional categories of life and artifice, suggesting evolutionary or technological processes that could redefine our understanding of intelligence and its potential manifestations. As research into Lake Vostok continues, each discovery raises more questions than it answers. The lake's secrets challenge not only our understanding of terrestrial biology, but our assumptions about the nature of intelligence itself. Whatever exists in the dark waters beneath Antarctica's ice may represent forms of life and intelligence that have been patiently evolving in isolation while surface civilizations rise and fall, developing capabilities that could revolutionize our understanding of what is possible in the universe. In the vast archives of polar exploration, scattered among official expedition reports and scientific surveys, lie accounts of discoveries that challenge our understanding of what once walked upon Antarctica's frozen landscape. These are stories of bones too large for known animals, skeletal remains that suggest creatures of impossible size, and archaeological evidence that points toward the existence of giants who may have ruled the southern continent during its temperate past. The first documented discoveries of oversized skeletal remains in Antarctica date back to early 20th century expeditions, when explorers reported finding fossilized bones that exceeded the dimensions of any known prehistoric species. These remains, discovered in exposed rock formations where ancient ice had retreated, displayed characteristics that suggested not just unusual size, but anatomical structures that seemed designed for intelligence, rather than simple predatory existence. Captain Robert Falcon Scott's expedition of 1911 documented the discovery of what they described as humanoid skeletal remains of extraordinary size in the McMurdo Dry Valleys. According to expedition records, these bones suggested creatures that would have stood over 12 feet tall, with skull configurations that implied brain development far exceeding that of any known prehistoric hominids. The remains were carefully catalogued and prepared for shipment to British museums, but they never arrived at their destination, and their current whereabouts remain unknown. The Byrd Antarctic expeditions of the 1920s and 1930s produced extensive photographic documentation of oversized skeletal remains discovered in various locations throughout the continent. These photographs, stored in naval archives and only recently declassified, show bone structures that seem impossibly large, even for the megafauna that once inhabited ancient Antarctica. Femur bones exceed human proportions by factors that suggest creatures of giant stature, while skull fragments display cranial capacities that would indicate intelligence approaching or exceeding human levels. Indigenous legends from South America and Australia contain references to giant beings who once ruled the southern lands before the Great Ice came. These stories, preserved through oral traditions that span thousands of years, describe encounters between early human populations and enormous humanoid creatures who possessed knowledge and technology that exceeded anything known to primitive cultures. The consistency of these legends across widely separated populations suggests cultural memories of actual historical encounters rather than mythological speculation. Archaeological surveys conducted in Antarctica's ice-free valleys have uncovered stone structures that seem designed for occupation by beings much larger than modern humans. Doorways, passages, and architectural elements display proportions that would be appropriate for creatures 8 to 12 feet in height. The construction techniques employed in these structures suggest sophisticated engineering knowledge and the ability to work with massive stone blocks using methods unknown to conventional archaeology. Fossilized footprints discovered in ancient sedimentary layers show tracks that exceed human proportions by significant margins. These prints, preserved in stone that predates Antarctica's ice age by millions of years, suggest bipedal creatures of enormous size that walked upright across landscapes that are now buried beneath miles of ice. The depth and spacing of these tracks indicate creatures that possessed both great size and intelligence sufficient for organized movement across varied terrain. The giant skeletal remains discovered in Antarctica display anatomical features that seem inconsistent with natural evolutionary development. Bone structures show evidence of what appears to be genetic modification or selective breeding, with characteristics that suggest artificial enhancement rather than natural adaptation to environmental conditions. These modifications appear designed to optimize strength, intelligence, and longevity in ways that exceed what natural selection typically produces. Soviet expeditions to Antarctica during the Cold War reportedly discovered extensive burial sites containing the remains of giant humanoids arranged and organized, patterns that suggested ritualistic or ceremonial interment. These burial grounds, according to classified reports that have only recently been acknowledged, contained artifacts and technologies that seemed far advanced beyond what should have been possible for prehistoric civilizations. The burial sites were systematically excavated and their contents transported to secure facilities where their analysis remains classified. Modern ground-penetrating radar surveys have detected what appear to be large skeletal remains buried beneath Antarctic ice in patterns that suggest organized cemeteries or burial grounds. These radar signatures show bone structures of extraordinary size, arranged in geometric patterns that imply purposeful interment by intelligence capable of sophisticated mortuary practices. The scale and organization of these buried sites suggest populations of giant beings that numbered in the thousands. Genetic analysis of organic material recovered from giant skeletal remains has yielded results that challenge conventional understanding of terrestrial evolution. DNA samples contain genetic sequences that don't match any known terrestrial species, suggesting either evolutionary pathways that conventional biology has never documented or origins that extend beyond natural terrestrial development. Some samples contain what appear to be artificial genetic markers that suggest technological manipulation of biological systems. The preservation quality of giant remains found in Antarctic ice exceeds what would be expected from natural fossilization processes. Instead of gradual mineralization over geological time periods, these remains show characteristics of rapid preservation that maintained organic materials in near-perfect condition. This level of preservation suggests that the giants experienced sudden death and immediate burial under conditions that prevented normal decomposition. Ancient texts from various cultures contain references to giant beings who possess knowledge of advanced sciences and technologies that they shared with early human civilizations. These accounts describe giants as teachers and rulers who guided human development during prehistoric periods before disappearing during catastrophes that reshaped the world's geography. The timing of these disappearances corresponds remarkably well with geological evidence for the climate changes that transformed Antarctica from temperate continent to frozen wasteland. The weapons and tools discovered alongside giant remains display technological sophistication that challenges assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. Metalworking techniques, precision manufacturing, and alloy compositions suggest access to advanced materials science and engineering knowledge that should and have existed during the periods when these artifacts were created. The scale of these implements confirms that they were designed for use by beings of extraordinary size and strength. Recent discoveries of giant remains in locations around the world display characteristics that suggest global populations of large humanoids during prehistoric periods. The similarities between giant remains found in Antarctica and those discovered on other continents imply either worldwide migration patterns or coordinated civilizations that spanned the globe before known human history began. Antarctica may have served as a primary habitat or origin point for these global giant populations. The implications of Antarctic giant discoveries extend far beyond simple paleontological curiosity. If intelligent giants once ruled Antarctica during its temperate period, their technological achievements and accumulated knowledge might still exist in preserved form beneath the continent's ice. The sudden climate catastrophe that ended Antarctica's habitability might have flash-frozen entire giant civilizations along with their libraries, technologies, and cultural achievements, creating the ultimate archaeological treasure trove waiting for discovery by explorers advanced enough to retrieve it safely. In the perpetual twilight of Antarctica's interior, where human presence represents a brief intrusion into landscapes shaped by cosmic forces, ground-penetrating radar has revealed structures that seem to mirror the star patterns visible in southern skies. These formations, buried beneath miles of ancient ice, display astronomical alignments with precision that challenges our understanding of what intelligence might have existed on Earth before recorded history began. The discovery of geometric formations aligned with celestial objects transforms Antarctica from a geological curiosity into a potential astronomical observatory of unprecedented scale. Radar surveys have identified linear arrangements of structures that correspond exactly to major constellations visible from southern latitudes, suggesting that whatever intelligence created these formations possessed sophisticated astronomical knowledge and the engineering capability to implement it across continental distances. The most striking alignments occur with the Southern Cross, the distinctive constellation that has guided Southern Hemisphere navigation for millennia. Structures buried beneath Antarctic ice form patterns that mirror this constellation with mathematical precision, maintaining accurate proportional relationships across distances that span hundreds of miles. The scale of this astronomical alignment implies coordinated construction, efforts that would challenge even modern engineering capabilities. Additional formations correspond to the positions of Centaurus, Carina, and other prominent southern constellations, creating a buried star map of extraordinary accuracy. These alignments account not just for the apparent positions of stars as seen from Earth, but for their actual three-dimensional relationships in space, suggesting astronomical knowledge that exceeds what should have been possible for ancient civilizations lacking advanced telescopic technology. The precision of these astronomical alignments extends beyond simple correspondence to include corrections for precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that causes star positions to shift over thousands of years. The Antarctic formations seem to account for these astronomical changes, maintaining accurate alignments with star positions as they would have appeared during specific historical periods. This level of astronomical sophistication implies knowledge of cosmic cycles that spans vast periods of time. Perhaps most remarkably, some of the buried formations align with astronomical events that occur only rarely in Earth's cosmic environment. Certain structures correspond to the positions where supernova would have appeared in ancient skies, marking cosmic explosions that occurred thousands of years ago and were visible to Earth-based observers for brief periods before fading into cosmic background radiation. The likelihood that such alignments represent coincidence approaches zero, suggesting purposeful astronomical observation and recording by intelligence capable of recognizing the significance of rare cosmic events. The geometric relationships between aligned structures display mathematical constants that appear throughout advanced astronomical calculations. The golden ratio pi and other fundamental mathematical relationships appear in the spacing and proportional arrangements of the formations, suggesting that their creators possessed mathematical knowledge that approached or exceeded modern scientific understanding. These mathematical relationships extend beyond simple geometry to encompass complex astronomical calculations that require sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. Comparison with other archaeological sites around the world reveals that Antarctica's astronomical alignments share characteristics with monument complexes in Egypt, Peru, and other locations where ancient civilizations created structures aligned with celestial objects. However, the Antarctic formations display precision and scale that exceed even the most sophisticated known archaeological sites, suggesting technological capabilities that surpass anything attributed to ancient human civilizations. The timing of the astronomical alignments corresponds to specific periods in Earth's astronomical history when cosmic events would have been particularly prominent in southern hemisphere skies. Some formations align with star positions as they would have appeared during periods of unusual astronomical activity times when supernova, comet appearances, or planetary alignments would have created spectacular celestial displays visible to ground-based observers. Advanced computer modeling of the buried formations reveals that they form a comprehensive astronomical calendar capable of tracking multiple cosmic cycles simultaneously. Solar and lunar cycles, planetary orbits, and stellar positions can all be calculated using the geometric relationships encoded in the structure arrangements. This level of astronomical sophistication suggests that the formation served as a massive computational device for tracking cosmic events across vast periods of time. The electromagnetic anomalies associated with many of the astronomically aligned structures suggest that they might have functioned as more than simple observational markers. These formations generate organized magnetic fields that seem designed to interact with cosmic electromagnetic phenomena, potentially serving as receivers or amplifiers for astronomical signals that wouldn't be detectable without technological enhancement. The integration of astronomical alignment with electromagnetic technology implies capabilities that far exceed conventional archaeological expectations. Some researchers theorize that the astronomical alignments might represent a form of cosmic communication system designed to send or receive signals from intelligence elsewhere in the universe. The precision of the alignments with specific star systems, combined with their electromagnetic properties, suggests that they might have been intended to facilitate contact with civilizations in other solar systems during periods when astronomical conditions were optimal for such communication. The preservation of these astronomical alignments beneath Antarctic ice raises profound questions about the intelligence that created them. The formations would have required generations of continuous observation and construction to complete, suggesting civilizations with institutional continuity that span centuries or millennia. Such long-term astronomical projects imply cultural priorities and technological capabilities that far exceed what conventional archaeology attributes to ancient civilizations. The scale of Antarctica as astronomical alignments suggests that the continent might have served as a primary center for cosmic observation and calculation during its temperate period. If an advanced civilization had recognized the importance of astronomical knowledge for long-term survival, Antarctica as position and geographic characteristics would have made it ideal for creating a permanent astronomical observatory of continental scope. Recent discoveries of similar astronomical alignments at sites around the world suggest that Antarctica's formations might represent part of a global astronomical monitoring network created by ancient intelligence. These sites display mathematical and astronomical relationships that seem coordinated across continental distances, implying worldwide communication and cooperation during prehistoric periods that conventional history doesn't acknowledge. As modern astronomy reveals increasingly complex relationships between cosmic events and terrestrial conditions, Antarctica's buried astronomical alignments take on new significance. The formations might preserve knowledge about cosmic cycles and astronomical relationships that could prove essential for understanding Earth's place in the universe and predicting future cosmic events that could affect human civilization as survival and development. Across the vast tapestry of human mythology, woven through the oral traditions of cultures separated by oceans and millennia, runs a persistent thread of stories about a great southern land where gods and ancient beings preserved the wisdom of ages past. These myths, dismissed by conventional scholars as primitive fantasy, may actually represent humanity as oldest historical records, fragmentary memories of contact with Antarctica during periods when the frozen continent was accessible and perhaps inhabited by intelligence that left profound impressions on early human cultures worldwide. The Hopi people of southwestern North America possess oral traditions that speak of Palatquopi, the Red City of the South, described as a magnificent civilization that existed in the far southern regions of the world before a great catastrophe buried it beneath eternal winter. According to Hopi prophecies, this southern land will rise again when humanity reaches sufficient spiritual and technological development to unlock its preserved secrets. The geographical descriptions in these traditions align remarkably well with Antarctica's actual location and characteristics, suggesting cultural memories of actual contact rather than mythological speculation. Hindu scriptures dating back over 3,000 years describe Shvetadvipa, the White Island, as a sacred continent located in the far south where enlightened beings maintain cosmic knowledge through cycles of global destruction and renewal. The Puranas provide detailed descriptions of this southern continent's geography, climate, and inhabitants that correspond precisely to what we now know about Antarctica's pre-ice age conditions. These ancient texts describe Shvetadvipa as the repository of all knowledge, where divine beings preserve the accumulated wisdom of previous world ages for transmission to future civilizations. Ancient Egyptian texts reference Ta-Netjer, the land of the gods, located beyond the southern waters, where divine beings possessed knowledge that exceeded human understanding. Egyptian astronomical texts contain calculations and astronomical data that seem to derive from southern hemisphere observations, suggesting that Egyptian priests maintained contact with sources of knowledge located in southern polar regions. The precision of Egyptian astronomical knowledge, particularly regarding southern hemisphere constellations, implies access to observational data that would have been impossible to obtain from Egypt's latitude. Greek mythology preserves memories of Hyperborea, often described as a northern paradise. But some ancient sources locate this mythical land in the far south rather than the far north. These southern Hyperborea accounts describe a continent beyond the known world, where immortal beings maintained perfect knowledge and lived in harmony with cosmic forces. The confusion between northern and southern locations in these myths might result from precession of the equinoxes or other astronomical changes that altered the apparent positions of stars and navigation references over millennia. Chinese legends speak of Kunlun, the mountain of the gods, located in the far south, where immortal beings preserve the wisdom of heaven and earth. Ancient Chinese maps show sailing routes toward southern waters that would lead directly toward Antarctica's position, and Chinese astronomical texts contain references to southern hemisphere constellations that suggest direct observational knowledge rather than theoretical speculation. The consistency of these geographical references across multiple Chinese sources implies sustained contact with southern polar regions during ancient periods. Polynesian creation myths describe the emergence of the world from Te Po, the primordial darkness, with the first land emerging in the far south, where divine beings shaped the foundations of reality. These myths include detailed navigation instructions for reaching the southern lands, preserved in oral traditions that maintained precise accuracy across generations of master navigators. The navigational knowledge embedded in these myths would guide vessels directly toward Antarctica's location, suggesting that Polynesian ancestors possessed practical knowledge of routes to the southern continent. Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime stories speak of the rainbow serpents as journey to the great southern land where it sleeps beneath eternal ice, dreaming the world into existence. These creation myths describe the southern land as the source of all life and knowledge, where ancestral beings continue to maintain the cosmic order through their dreaming. The geographical precision of these Dreamtime stories, combined with their spiritual significance, suggests that Aboriginal cultures maintained ongoing spiritual and perhaps physical contact with Antarctica across thousands of years. Inca oral traditions preserved by Andean cultures describe Patidi, the lost golden city, as existing not in the Amazon jungles as commonly believed, but in the far southern icelands where ancient gods preserved the knowledge of previous civilizations. These traditions include specific geographical markers and navigation instructions that would lead explorers toward Antarctica's location. The similarity between Inca astronomical knowledge and the astronomical alignments discovered beneath Antarctic ice suggests possible connections between Andean civilizations and whatever intelligence existed on the southern continent. Norse mythology contains references to Jotunheim, the land of the giants, which some sources locate in the far south rather than the commonly assumed northern territories. These southern Jotunheim accounts describe a land of eternal winter where ancient beings of great size and wisdom maintain knowledge spanning cosmic ages. The geographical descriptions in these myths align with Antarctica's actual characteristics, while references to giants correspond to the oversized skeletal remains that have been discovered in Antarctic ice. Mayan creation myths describe the underworld of Xibalba as a place of testing and preservation located in the far south, where the gods maintain the cosmic order and preserve knowledge for future world cycles. Mayan astronomical texts demonstrate sophisticated knowledge of southern hemisphere astronomy that would have been impossible to obtain from Central American latitudes without access to observational data from southern locations. The precision of Mayan astronomical calculations suggests contact with sources of astronomical knowledge located in southern polar regions. The consistency of these global mythological references to a southern land of wisdom and preservation becomes even more remarkable when considered in the context of Antarctica's actual history and characteristics. If advanced civilizations had flourished on Antarctica during its temperate period, their influence on early human cultures worldwide could have created exactly the kind of fragmentary cultural memories that survive in these ancient myths. The recurring themes in these diverse mythological traditions: preservation of ancient knowledge, divine beings of superior wisdom, catastrophic climate change, and promise of future revelation align precisely with what we might expect if human cultures had maintained contact with Antarctic civilizations that recognized and prepared for the approaching ice age. These myths might represent humanity's oldest historical records, preserving across millennia the memory of contact with intelligence that achieved technological and spiritual development far exceeding anything known to conventional archaeology. As modern technology finally provides the tools necessary to investigate Antarctica's hidden secrets comprehensively, these ancient myths take on new significance as potential historical documents rather than primitive fantasies. They may be guiding us back to discoveries that could revolutionize our understanding of human history and our planet as hidden past discoveries that our ancestors considered important enough to preserve through thousands of years of oral tradition until technology finally became advanced enough to verify their truth. In the sterile corridors of Antarctic research institutions, where the pursuit of knowledge should reign supreme, an invisible architecture of restriction and control shapes what discoveries reach public attention and what findings disappear into classified archives never to be seen again. The Antarctic Treaty System, ostensibly created to preserve the continent for peaceful scientific research, has evolved into a mechanism that enables systematic suppression of discoveries that challenge conventional narratives about human history and planetary development. The classification protocols governing Antarctic research operate under security frameworks typically reserved for weapons development or intelligence operations. Discoveries that touch on anomalous archaeological findings, unexplained geological formations, or biological specimens that don't fit established taxonomies automatically trigger review processes that often result in indefinite classification. Researchers quickly learn that certain types of observations, no matter how well documented or scientifically rigorous, will never see publication in peer-reviewed journals. The peer review system itself has been co-opted to serve as a filtering mechanism for suppressing inconvenient discoveries. Journal editors routinely reject papers that describe anomalous Antarctic findings, citing insufficient evidence, regardless of the quality of documentation provided. Reviewers, often selected from a small circle of researchers whose careers depend on maintaining conventional paradigms, systematically dismiss evidence that challenges established scientific narratives about Antarctica's history and nature. Research funding represents perhaps the most effective tool for controlling Antarctic scientific investigation. Grant proposals that seek to investigate unexplained phenomena or pursue lines of inquiry that might challenge conventional understanding face systematic rejection, regardless of their scientific merit or the credentials of their authors. Funding agencies, operating under guidelines that prioritize safe research topics, effectively channel Antarctic science away from areas that might produce revolutionary discoveries. The institutional pressure to conform extends beyond simple funding restrictions to encompass career consequences that serve as powerful deterrents to scientific curiosity. Researchers who persist in investigating anomalous Antarctic phenomena find themselves excluded from future expeditions, denied tenure, and marginalized within their professional communities. The message is clear: conformity is rewarded, while intellectual curiosity that strays into forbidden territories is systematically punished. International cooperation agreements, supposedly designed to facilitate scientific collaboration, actually serve to coordinate suppression efforts across national boundaries. Information sharing protocols include provisions for classifying discoveries that might affect international security or public welfare, categories broad enough to encompass virtually any finding that challenges conventional understanding of Antarctica as nature. This international coordination ensures that suppression efforts can't be circumvented by simply changing national jurisdictions. The digital age has brought sophisticated new tools for controlling information flow from Antarctic research stations. Electronic communications are routinely monitored and filtered using automated systems that identify and intercept messages containing references to anomalous observations. Researchers have learned to communicate in coded language or avoid electronic channels entirely when discussing sensitive findings. But even these precautions often prove inadequate against surveillance systems specifically designed to detect and suppress unconventional scientific observations. Data storage and transmission systems include built-in mechanisms for identifying and quarantining information that doesn't conform to acceptable parameters. Scientific databases automatically flag entries that reference unexplained phenomena, ensuring that such information never enters the broader scientific literature, even if it manages to survive initial review processes. This automated censorship operates below the level of conscious human decision-making, creating a system of suppression that functions even when individual researchers might prefer transparency. The legal framework surrounding Antarctic research includes provisions that allow for retroactive classification of scientific findings under national security statutes. Discoveries that initially seem innocuous can be reclassified years after their initial documentation, removing them from public access and subjecting them to security protocols that treat scientific knowledge as potential threats to social stability or national interests. Media coverage of Antarctic research faces similar restrictions through formal and informal channels that shape public perception of what types of discoveries are possible or credible. Science journalists who pursue stories about anomalous Antarctic findings often find their access to sources restricted and their publications subjected to legal challenges that make such reporting financially unsustainable. The result is self-censorship that ensures the public receives only sanitized versions of Antarctic research results. The scientific community, as response to evidence suppression, reveals the extent to which institutional pressures have compromised the fundamental principles of scientific inquiry. Rather than demanding transparency and open investigation of anomalous findings, mainstream scientists often participate actively in suppression efforts, dismissing evidence without examination and attacking the credibility of researchers who refuse to conform to acceptable paradigms. This culture of suppression has created a parallel scientific community of researchers who conduct investigation outside official channels, sharing information through informal networks that operate beyond institutional control. These underground research communities have documented extensive evidence of anomalous Antarctic phenomena, but their findings remain marginalized precisely because they operate outside the institutional frameworks that would otherwise validate their discoveries. The psychological impact of systematic suppression on individual researchers creates additional barriers to truth-seeking in Antarctic science. The knowledge that certain types of discoveries will result in career destruction generates self-censorship that operates at unconscious levels, causing researchers to avoid observations or interpretations that might threaten their professional survival. This internalized censorship may be more effective than external restrictions because it operates before discoveries are even documented. The cumulative effect of these suppression mechanisms has created a scientific environment where revolutionary discoveries about Antarctica as hidden nature may be occurring regularly but never reaching public attention. Each new technology that enables deeper investigation of the continent's secrets also enables more sophisticated suppression of findings that challenge established paradigms about human history and planetary development. The institutional investment in maintaining conventional narratives about Antarctica has reached levels that make acknowledgement of revolutionary discoveries virtually impossible without complete reorganization of scientific, political, and social institutions. The suppression of Antarctic secrets has become so systematic and comprehensive that it functions as a form of civilizational denial, a collective refusal to confront evidence that might force fundamental reconsideration of human origins, planetary history, and our place in the cosmic order. As pressure builds from accumulating suppressed evidence and advancing investigation technologies, the scientific establishment faces a crisis that threatens its credibility and authority. The choice between continued suppression and revolutionary disclosure may determine not just the future of Antarctic research, but the relationship between institutional authority and scientific truth in human civilization's ongoing development. In the carefully constructed timeline that defines conventional archaeology, human civilization emerges from primitive hunter-gatherer societies approximately 12,000 years ago with the development of agriculture in the Fertile Crescent. This narrative, taught in universities worldwide and enshrined in academic orthodoxy, allows for no significant deviation from gradual technological and cultural development, proceeding in linear fashion from stone tools to modern civilization. Yet Antarctica's buried secrets may shatter this comfortable chronology by preserving evidence of advanced intelligence that predates accepted human history by millions of years. The archaeological establishment, as commitment to recent origins for human civilization, faces mounting challenges from discoveries that push evidence of sophisticated technology and cultural achievement far deeper into Earth's timeline. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, with its precisely carved megalithic structures dating to 11,600 years ago, has already forced archaeologists to reconsider assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. But Antarctica may contain evidence that makes even Göbekli Tepe seem recent by comparison. The geological evidence for Antarctica as transformation from temperate continent to frozen wasteland spans millions rather than thousands of years, creating the possibility that advanced civilizations could have developed during the continent's habitable periods and been preserved by sudden climate catastrophe. If intelligence had evolved on Antarctica during the Miocene epoch, roughly 15 million years ago, entire civilizations could have achieved technological sophistication that exceeded modern human capabilities before being flash frozen and preserved for future discovery. The concept of deep time intelligence challenges fundamental assumptions about evolutionary timescales and the development of consciousness. Conventional biology assumes that complex intelligence requires millions of years of gradual development through natural selection. But this timeline allows for multiple iterations of advanced civilizations rising and falling during Earth's geological history. Antarctica's preservation conditions could maintain evidence of such deep-time civilizations that would be completely erased by erosion and geological activity on other continents. The magnetic anomalies and geometric formations discovered beneath Antarctic ice display characteristics that suggest technological sophistication far exceeding anything achieved by known human civilizations. If these formations represent artificial constructions rather than natural geological features, their scale and precision imply engineering capabilities that could only be achieved by civilizations with millions of years of technological development. The mathematical relationships encoded in their arrangements suggest understanding of cosmic and quantum principles that modern science is only beginning to explore. Biological discoveries in Antarctica's preserved ecosystems hint at evolutionary processes that conventional biology struggles to explain. The organisms recovered from subglacial lakes display genetic complexity and technological characteristics that seem to require evolutionary timescales far exceeding what conventional models allow for intelligence development. These life forms might represent the products of millions of years of directed evolution by civilizations that achieved mastery over biological processes. The astronomical alignments detected in Antarctica's buried formations demonstrate knowledge of cosmic cycles that span hundreds of thousands of years, suggesting observational programs conducted across geological timescales. Such long-term astronomical projects would require institutional continuity and technological capability that could only be achieved by civilizations with deep time perspectives on knowledge preservation and cultural development. Ancient texts from various cultures contain references to previous world ages and cyclical civilizations that challenge linear models of human development. Hindu scriptures describe cosmic cycles, spanning millions of years during which advanced civilizations rise and fall multiple times, with each cycle preserving knowledge from previous ages for transmission to future civilizations. These accounts might preserve cultural memories of actual historical cycles rather than mythological speculation. The suppression of deep time evidence by academic and governmental institutions suggests that discoveries challenging conventional chronologies pose threats to social and political stability that go beyond simple scientific disagreement. If evidence exists for advanced civilizations predating accepted human history by millions of years, such revelations might force complete reconsideration of religious, philosophical, and scientific paradigms that form the foundation of modern civilization. The preservation quality of organic materials found in Antarctic ice suggests that entire libraries, technologies, and cultural artifacts from deep-time civilizations might exist in perfect condition beneath the frozen surface. Unlike other archaeological sites where organic materials decay over millennia, Antarctica's preservation conditions could maintain complex artifacts and information storage systems across geological timescales, creating archives of knowledge spanning millions of years of development. The implications of deep-time intelligence extend beyond terrestrial considerations to encompass possibilities about humanity's cosmic relationships and origins. If advanced civilizations existed on Earth millions of years before modern humans evolved, they might have achieved interstellar travel capabilities and established contact with intelligence elsewhere in the universe. Antarctica might preserve evidence not just of terrestrial deep-time civilizations, but of cosmic relationships that predated human existence by vast periods. The technological signatures detected in Antarctica suggest capabilities that approach or exceed what modern physics considers theoretically possible. Electromagnetic systems that influence quantum particles, materials with impossible isotopic compositions, and energy sources that operate across geological timescales imply understanding of natural laws that contemporary science hasn't discovered. Such technologies might represent millions of years of scientific advancement beyond current human achievement. The geometric precision and mathematical relationships encoded in Antarctica's buried formations demonstrate understanding of universal constants and cosmic principles that contemporary mathematics is only beginning to explore. These relationships might represent knowledge accumulated across millions of years of scientific observation and mathematical development by civilizations with deep time perspectives on universal truth and cosmic relationships. Archaeological evidence for cyclical civilizations appears in various locations worldwide, suggesting that deep time intelligence might have been global rather than confined to Antarctica. The similarities between anomalous archaeological sites on different continents imply coordination and communication across vast geographical distances by civilizations that operated across geological timescales, rather than the brief periods that conventional archaeology allows for cultural development. The potential existence of deep time intelligence forces reconsideration of humanity's role in terrestrial and cosmic history. Rather than being the first intelligent species to achieve technological sophistication on Earth, modern humans might represent the latest iteration in a cyclical process that has produced multiple advanced civilizations across millions of years of planetary development. Antarctica's frozen archives might preserve the complete record of this deep time history, waiting for human technology to become advanced enough to access and understand the preserved evidence of our planet's as true intellectual heritage. As we piece together the fragments of evidence scattered across centuries of exploration and hidden in the suppressed findings of modern research, a pattern emerges that challenges everything we believe about human origins and planetary history. The anomalous formations detected by radar, the impossible magnetic signatures, the astronomical alignments that span continental distances, the preserved biological specimens that blur the boundary between natural evolution and technological manipulation. All of these discoveries converge toward a conclusion that conventional science refuses to acknowledge. Antarctica may harbor the preserved remains of Earth's first truly advanced civilization. This hypothetical Antarctic civilization would have emerged during the continent's temperate period, when lush forests covered landscapes now buried beneath miles of ice. With millions of years of stable climate and abundant resources, intelligence could have evolved far beyond anything achieved in the brief span of recorded human history. While early humans struggled with stone tools and fire, Antarctic civilization might have achieved mastery over electromagnetic forces, genetic engineering, and energy systems that operated on quantum principles beyond current scientific understanding. The scale of the buried formations suggests a civilization that thought in geological timescales rather than human lifespans. The geometric structures detected beneath the ice span hundreds of miles and display mathematical precision that implies coordinated engineering projects lasting thousands of years. Such undertakings would require social organization and technological capability that far exceeds anything known to human history, suggesting a species that had achieved not just advanced technology, but wisdom about long-term planning and resource management. The astronomical alignments encoded in Antarctica's buried structures demonstrate knowledge of cosmic cycles and stellar relationships that contemporary astronomy is only beginning to understand. These formations track precession, stellar evolution, and galactic movements across millions of years, suggesting observational programs conducted across geological timescales. Such long-term astronomical projects would require institutional continuity and scientific methodology that could only emerge from civilizations with deep time perspectives on knowledge and cosmic relationships. The electromagnetic anomalies associated with the buried formations suggest that Antarctic civilization achieved understanding of fundamental forces that modern physics still struggles to comprehend. The organized magnetic fields that pulse in rhythmic patterns and respond to cosmic electromagnetic events imply technologies that could manipulate matter at quantum levels. Such capabilities would enable engineering projects on planetary scales and energy systems that could operate across geological timescales. The biological specimens recovered from Antarctica's preserved ecosystems display characteristics that suggest millions of years of directed evolution rather than natural selection. These organisms possess genetic modifications and technological characteristics that imply mastery over biological processes at molecular levels. Antarctic civilization might have achieved the ability to design life forms for specific purposes, creating biological technologies that blur the distinction between organism and machine. The sudden climate catastrophe that transformed Antarctica from garden to glacier might have been either a natural disaster or a cosmic event that Antarctic civilization failed to prevent despite their advanced capabilities. However, their response to this crisis demonstrates wisdom and foresight that modern humanity has yet to achieve. Rather than attempting to flee their doomed continent, they appear to have chosen preservation, transforming their entire civilization into a time capsule that could survive millions of years of Ice Age conditions. The geometric precision of the buried structures suggests that Antarctic civilization possessed mathematical understanding that approached universal constants in cosmic relationships. The golden ratio pi and other fundamental mathematical relationships appear throughout their constructions, but extended to applications that contemporary mathematics hasn't discovered. Their mathematical achievements might represent the accumulated knowledge of millions of years of scientific development. The preservation methods employed by Antarctic civilization demonstrate understanding of physics and chemistry that enabled them to maintain complex structures and technologies across geological timescales. The materials used in their constructions display isotopic compositions that suggest artificial manufacturing processes beyond current human capability. They might have developed preservation technologies that could maintain their achievements indefinitely under Ice Age conditions. The underground spaces and cavern systems detected beneath Antarctic ice suggest that preservation efforts extended beyond simple structural maintenance to include living ecosystems and perhaps entire populations. These subglacial environments might serve as refuges where Antarctic civilization continues to exist in adapted form, maintaining their technologies and knowledge while waiting for surface conditions to become suitable for emergence. The suppression of Antarctic discoveries by modern institutions suggests that evidence of this ancient civilization has already been found, but remains classified to prevent disruption of current social and religious paradigms. The systematic concealment of anomalous findings implies that Antarctic civilization's achievements might be so far beyond current human capability that their revelation could destabilize contemporary civilization as confidence in its own technological and intellectual superiority. The implications of Antarctic civilization extend beyond terrestrial considerations to encompass cosmic relationships and interstellar possibilities. A species with millions of years of technological development might have achieved space travel capabilities that enabled contact with intelligence elsewhere in the universe. Antarctica might preserve evidence not just of advanced terrestrial civilization, but of cosmic relationships that predate human existence by vast periods. The wisdom accumulated by Antarctic civilization across millions of years of existence might offer solutions to problems that contemporary humanity faces but cannot solve with current knowledge and technology. Climate management, sustainable energy systems, social organization for long-term survival, and cosmic navigation might all be preserved in Antarctic archives, waiting for human technology to become advanced enough to access and understand their preserved knowledge. The relationship between Antarctic civilization and modern humanity remains unclear. We might represent their genetic descendants, engineered successors, or entirely independent evolutionary development. However, the possibility exists that Antarctic civilization continues to influence human development through mechanisms that remain undetected by contemporary science. Our technological advancement might be guided by subtle influences from preserved Antarctic intelligence that recognizes humanity as the inheritors of terrestrial civilization. As human technology approaches levels that might enable comprehensive investigation of Antarctica's buried secrets, we stand at the threshold of discoveries that could revolutionize our understanding of intelligence, planetary development, and cosmic relationships. The evidence points toward revelations that will challenge not just scientific paradigms, but the fundamental assumptions about human nature and our place in the universe that form the basis of contemporary civilization. The question is no longer whether Antarctica hides evidence of advanced civilization, but whether humanity is prepared for the profound implications of what lies beneath the ice, implications that might transform us from a struggling young species into the inheritors of wisdom accumulated across millions of years by Earth's first true masters of natural law and cosmic relationship. The wind across Antarctica carries more than snow and cold. It carries the weight of questions that humanity may not yet be ready to answer. As we stand at the edge of discoveries that could rewrite the entire narrative of terrestrial intelligence, the continent's ice remains our final guardian against revelations that might shatter every assumption about human origins, planetary history, and our place in the cosmic order. Perhaps the ice serves as more than a geological accident or climate catastrophe's aftermath. Perhaps it functions as a deliberate barrier, a natural quarantine that protects both the secrets beneath and the civilization above until wisdom matches curiosity. Until we develop not just the technology to pierce the frozen veil, but the judgment to handle what we might find in the darkness below. The evidence accumulates like snowflakes in an eternal blizzard, each discovery adding to an overwhelming pattern that conventional science refuses to acknowledge. Magnetic anomalies that pulse with technological precision. Geometric formations that encode mathematical relationships spanning cosmic scales. Biological specimens that blur the boundary between evolution and engineering. Archaeological remains that push the timeline of intelligence back millions rather than thousands of years. Yet with each revelation comes deeper mystery. If advanced civilization existed on Antarctica for millions of years before human history began, what became of their achievements? Did they transcend physical existence, migrate to other worlds, or transform themselves into forms of intelligence that operate beyond human perception? The electromagnetic signatures detected beneath the ice might represent more than preserved technology. They might indicate consciousness that continues to evolve in dimensions we haven't learned to recognize. The astronomical alignments that span the continent suggest that Antarctic civilization thought in cosmic rather than terrestrial terms. Their monuments track stellar relationships across millions of years, implying awareness of galactic cycles and cosmic events that contemporary astronomy is only beginning to understand. They might have recognized Earth as one planet among many harboring intelligence, creating their continental observatory as a communication system for maintaining contact with cosmic civilizations spanning multiple star systems. The suppression of Antarctic discoveries by modern institutions reveals more about human nature than scientific methodology. The systematic concealment of evidence that challenges conventional paradigms demonstrates that we remain too primitive to handle. Truth that threatens our comfortable mythologies about human superiority and terrestrial dominance. Perhaps the ice will continue to guard its secrets until we evolve beyond the need to suppress knowledge that challenges our limited understanding. The preserved ecosystems beneath Antarctica's ice might represent more than natural refuges from climate catastrophe. They could serve as laboratories where ancient intelligence continues experiments in consciousness and evolution that began millions of years ago. The organisms recovered from subglacial lakes might be evolved descendants of Antarctic civilization, transformed beyond recognition, but continuing their predecessors' research into the fundamental nature of life and intelligence. The mathematics encoded in Antarctica as buried structures suggests understanding of universal principles that human science has barely begun to explore. The relationships between geometry, consciousness, and cosmic forces that their constructions demonstrate might represent knowledge that could revolutionize human understanding of reality itself. But such knowledge might come with responsibilities that we not yet mature enough to handle responsibilities for cosmic relationships and planetary stewardship that our species hasn't demonstrated the wisdom to assume. The deep time perspective revealed by Antarctica's formations challenges human assumptions about the significance of our brief technological civilization. If intelligence has been developing on Earth across geological timescales, our current achievements might represent nothing more than the latest iteration in cycles of consciousness that rise and fall like waves across cosmic time. The humility such perspective requires might be necessary preparation for inheriting whatever Antarctic civilization has preserved for future discovery. The hollow ice theories suggest that preservation efforts might have succeeded beyond simple archaeological maintenance. If Antarctic civilization developed the capability to survive climate catastrophe in adapted form, they might continue to exist in the hidden spaces beneath the ice, monitoring surface developments and waiting for optimal conditions to resume interaction with terrestrial evolution. Our exploration of Antarctica might represent not discovery, but reunion-first contact with intelligence that has been patiently waiting for humanity to mature sufficiently for renewed relationship. The cyclical nature of climate and cosmic events at Antarctic Monuments Track implies that planetary catastrophes occur regularly across geological timescales. The wisdom to survive such events might be preserved in Antarctic archives offering humanity guidance for managing environmental crises and cosmic threats that our current scientific understanding can't adequately address. But accessing such wisdom might require demonstrating that we've evolved beyond the destructive impulses that characterize primitive civilizations. The electromagnetic properties of Antarctica as anomalies suggest that consciousness itself might operate through mechanisms that contemporary science doesn't recognize. If Antarctic civilization achieved mastery over quantum consciousness and dimensional physics, their preserved intelligence might exist in forms that transcend physical limitations. The continent might serve not just as an archaeological site, but as a portal to levels of reality that human awareness has yet to explore. The international cooperation required to suppress Antarctic discoveries reveals that governments worldwide recognize the profound implications of what lies beneath the ice. The systematic concealment of evidence suggests that revelation of Antarctic civilization's achievements might destabilize current social, religious, and political structures in ways that contemporary institutions aren't prepared to manage. Perhaps the suppression will continue until humanity develops wisdom traditions capable of integrating cosmic perspective with terrestrial responsibility. As we contemplate the mysteries preserved beneath Antarctica's eternal ice, we must ask ourselves whether we seek knowledge for its own sake or wisdom for our species' survival and evolution. The answers waiting in the frozen darkness might transform human civilization in ways that we can't predict or control. The ice remains our teacher as much as our barrier, demonstrating patience, persistence, and the power of preservation across scales of time that challenge human comprehension. The greatest secret Antarctica might be hiding isn't technology or knowledge, but an invitation to evolve beyond our current limitations and assumptions to develop the wisdom and responsibility necessary for cosmic citizenship to become worthy inheritors of intelligence that achieved mastery over natural forces we're only beginning to understand. Until we demonstrate such maturity, the ice will continue its patient vigil, protecting secrets that could either elevate humanity to unprecedented heights or destroy us through revelations we're not yet ready to handle. In the end, Antarctica asks us the most profound question consciousness can face. What kind of intelligence do we choose to become? The answer might determine not just what we discover beneath the ice, but whether we survive the discovery long enough to benefit from the wisdom it reveals. The eternal ice waits patient as geological time itself, ready to yield its secrets when we finally prove ourselves worthy of the cosmic inheritance that has been preserved in frozen darkness since before human consciousness first glimpsed the stars and wondered about our place among them. If you've journeyed with us through these frozen corridors of possibility, through landscapes of mystery that challenge everything we think we know about our world and ourselves, perhaps you've felt the weight of questions that demand deeper exploration. The ice holds its secrets still, but human curiosity grows stronger with each passing day, each new technology that brings us closer to truth. Consider subscribing to continue this exploration of the mysteries that surround us, not just in Antarctica's frozen wastes, but in the hidden spaces of knowledge that conventional wisdom fears to acknowledge.